The crown was halfway to Sarah's head when the first assassin struck. He materialized from shadow, professionally trained, supernaturally fast, blade aimed directly at her exposed throat. He never reached her. White fire erupted from Sarah's free hand, turning the assassin to ash before he'd crossed half the distance. The crown settled onto her head without her even glancing at the death she'd just dealt. In the crowd, High Priestess Judith's scream cut through the shocked silence. Not horror at the assassination attempt, not fear of the retribution coming, recognition. Because 60 days ago, Judith had thrown this girl into a consecrated fire pit, had smiled while reading the execution decree, had watched flames reach higher than the temple walls, and convinced herself the cursed Omega was finally dead. No one survived the sacred fire. No one. Yet here stood Sarah Ashford, not just alive, but powerful, wearing a crown she'd placed on her own head, standing beside the Alpha King as an equal, burning attackers to ash without breaking stride. The girl who'd walked into that fire pit had been helpless. The woman who'd walked out could unmake reality with a thought. Two more assassins lunged from opposite sides. Sarah didn't move. The Alpha King's shadows caught one mid-leap. Sarah's fire consumed the other. She met Judith's terrified gaze across the hall and smiled. "You should have made sure I was dead," Sarah said, her voice carrying with supernatural clarity. "Because now I remember everything." Her eyes, no longer quite human, blazed with captured starlight. "And I'm going to tell them exactly what you did." 60 days earlier, in the fire pit where it all began. Chapter 1. The Fire Pit. Sarah. They built the fire at dawn. I watched from my cell window as the temple servants stacked consecrated wood in the ancient pit, oak blessed by moonlight, ash soaked in holy water, cedar carved with prayers to the goddess. Each piece placed with ritual precision, each layer a step closer to my death. My wrists already bore the marks of the sanctified chains, silver alloy mixed with wolf's bane, designed to suppress any last desperate attempt at shifting. Not that I could shift anyway. 22 years as an Omega, and my wolf had never stirred. Not once. That's what made me cursed. The Whitehead bloodline had produced alphas for 17 generations. My father, Albert Whitehead, commanded the Northern Guard. My mother had been beta-born, but strong enough to lead hunts. My older brother was being groomed for the High Council. And then there was me, Sarah, the genetic aberration, the Omega who shouldn't exist in alpha blood. They'd tried to hide me at first, kept me in the family estate, away from pack gatherings, told everyone I was sickly. But you can't hide weakness forever in a world that worships strength. Eventually, the whispers reached the temple. High Priestess Judith came herself to test me. I was 16. She'd made me kneel in the temple's inner sanctum while she drew my blood, burned it in moon-silver flames, read the smoke like scripture. Her face had gone white. "Abomination," she'd whispered. "Your bloodline is polluted. The goddess has marked you for cleansing." But my father had wealth, influence. He'd bought me 6 more years of life with generous donations to the temple, with promises that I'd find my wolf eventually, with increasingly desperate bargains. Until 3 months ago, when he died defending the borders from rogues, died a hero. His protection died with him. The new High Priestess, Judith, had risen to the position with terrifying speed, wasted no time. The execution order came within a week. My mother didn't fight it. My brother, Clayton, didn't even attend the reading of the decree. I was alone. The cell door opened. 2 temple guards entered, their faces hidden behind ceremonial masks. They didn't speak as they gripped my arms, didn't react when I stumbled on the stairs. We walked through the temple's marble halls, past tapestries depicting the goddess's glory, past alcoves where the faithful prayed. No one looked at me. Outside, the sun had fully risen, painting the execution ground in shades of gold and blood. The fire pit dominated the courtyard, a circular depression 15 feet across, lined with stones that had witnessed countless cleansings over the centuries. Around it, the crowd gathered. Citizens who'd come to watch justice served, temple priests in their white robes, council members in formal regalia. My family's section stood empty. Judith waited beside the fire pit, resplendent in the high priestess's ceremonial armor, white steel etched with lunar phases, a cloak of silver fur, the crescent crown marking her absolute authority in matters of faith. She smiled when she saw me. That smile made my skin crawl. Sarah Whitehead. Her voice rang out, magically amplified across the courtyard. You stand accused of spiritual pollution, of bearing Omega weakness in Alpha bloodline, of defiling the sacred hierarchy ordained by the moon goddess herself. I said nothing. What was there to say? The goddess has spoken through signs and portents. You are barren, cursed, a blight upon the pack's future. Do you deny these truths? I met her eyes. I deny nothing. I am what I am. Something flickered in her expression. Almost like approval? But it vanished before I could be certain. Then you accept the goddess's judgment? Purification by sacred fire? Here's where I was supposed to beg. Plead for mercy. Break down crying and make it entertaining for the crowd. Instead, I felt something strange unfurl in my chest. Not my wolf. I'd stopped hoping for that years ago. This was different, older, like a memory from a dream I'd never had. I accept, I said clearly, but I don't walk to my death. I walk to truth. There's a difference. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Judith's smile tightened. Chain her, she commanded. The guards forced me to my knees at the pit's edge. They locked the sanctified chains around my wrists, then around my ankles, the silver burning against my skin. The smell of wolf's bane made my eyes water. They checked each lock twice, ensuring I couldn't possibly escape. Then they lifted me, still kneeling, still bound, and placed me in the center of the unlit pyre. The wood pressed against my knees, splinters caught in my simple execution gown. I could smell the holy oils they'd used to bless the kindling, could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes watching, judging, waiting. Judith raised her hands. Goddess of the moon, accept this offering. Cleanse the corruption. Purify the bloodline. Let sacred flame consume what should never have been born. She lowered her hands toward the wood, and I felt it then. Really felt it. That strange, unfurling sensation in my chest, spreading outward, downward, into my bones and blood and breath. It didn't feel like dying. It felt like waking up. Wait, I heard myself say. Not loud, barely a whisper. But Judith heard. She froze, her fingers an inch from the kindling. What did you say? I looked up at her, and for just a moment, I saw past the ceremonial authority and the righteous condemnation. I saw fear, real bone-deep terror in her eyes. You know what I am, I said quietly. Don't you? You've always known. Her hand trembled. Light the fire, she commanded the acolytes. Now. They touched blessed torches to the kindling. The flames caught instantly, racing through the oil-soaked wood with supernatural speed. Heat blasted against my skin. Smoke filled my lungs. The crowd gasped as the fire built higher, faster, hotter than any natural flame. This was consecrated fire. Divine fire. The kind that burned soul as well as flesh. I should have been screaming. Instead, I closed my eyes and let that strange feeling in my chest expand. Let it fill every part of me. Let it... The chain shattered. Not melted, not broken. Shattered. Exploded into silver, dust that evaporated in the flames. My eyes snapped open. The fire had engulfed me completely now, a column of white-hot flame reaching 20 feet into the sky. Through the heat shimmer, I could see the crowd stumbling backward, could hear their screams of shock and terror. But the fire didn't hurt. It felt like coming home. I stood up in the center of the inferno, the execution gown burning away to ash, the wolf's bane smoke that should have been choking me, tasting like sweet incense. The flames parted around my skin like water around stone, and I heard hoofbeats. A horse, massive, black as midnight, had stopped at the edge of the courtyard. Its rider sat frozen, staring at me through the fire. Even from here, even through the flames, I could see his eyes. They weren't human eyes. They were violet. Deep, endless, ancient violet. The Alpha King. I'd never seen him before. He never came to temple ceremonies, never participated in the religious pageantry that governed pack life. Rumor said he was 1,000 years old, that he'd fought gods and survived, that his wolf was something other, something wrong, something the goddess herself feared. Looking at him now, I believed every rumor. His horse tried to bolt. He held it steady with one hand, but I could see the animal's terror, could smell its panic even through the fire. It wasn't afraid of the flames, it was afraid of me. I took a step forward. The flames moved with me, a living cloak of white fire that didn't consume, only transformed. Another step. The wood beneath my feet turned to ash, but my skin remained unmarked. "Impossible," Judith breathed. She'd fallen to her knees, her face a mask of shock and something else. Relief? It worked. Goddess help us. It actually worked. I stopped at the edge of the fire pit and looked down at her. What worked? She opened her mouth to answer, and the world exploded into violet light as the Alpha King dismounted and walked straight into the flames to reach me. Chapter 2. The Bargain. Callum. I'd smelled the burning from 40 miles away. That wasn't normal fire. That was celestial fire, the kind the old gods used when they still walked the earth before we killed them all. The kind that didn't just destroy flesh, but rewrote reality itself. And it was coming from the Temple of the Moon. I should have stayed out of it. Temple business wasn't crown business. The priests handled spiritual matters. I handled everything else. That arrangement had kept the peace for 800 years. But that smell, it smelled like home, like something I'd lost so long ago I'd forgotten the shape of the grief, like the world before it broke. So I rode. My advisors would call it foolish. Leo, my captain of the guard, would lecture me about security protocols. But Leo wasn't here. I'd left him at the war camp with strict orders not to follow. Some instincts you learn to trust after a millennium, and this instinct was screaming that whatever was happening at that temple, I needed to face it alone. The capital city blurred past as I pushed my horse harder. Citizens scattered from the road, recognizing the black standard that marked crown presence. Smart. I wasn't in a mood for pleasantries. The temple courtyard came into view just as the flames reached their peak, a column of white fire 20 feet high, so bright it hurt to look at directly. The crowd had stampeded backward, pressing against the courtyard walls in their panic to escape. But I couldn't look away from the fire, because standing in the center of it, unmarked and radiant, was a girl who shouldn't exist. My horse screamed and tried to bolt. I held it steady through sheer force of will, but I understood its terror. Every instinct I possessed was screaming at me to run, to get as far away as possible from whatever that creature was. Not creature, primal. The first children of the moon goddess, the original shifters before the hierarchy split into Alpha, Beta, Omega. Before the bloodlines diluted and diverged. Before we learned to fear our own power. I'd helped exterminate them 600 years ago. Watched them burn in fires just like this one, their dying screams echoing across battlefields as we cleansed the world of their chaos. The gods themselves had commanded it. Primals were too powerful, too unpredictable, too dangerous to survive in the new ordered world we were building. We'd killed them all. Every single one. Except... My hand moved to my chest, pressing against the scar tissue that covered my heart. 600 years old, that scar. 600 years of remembering the one primal child I couldn't kill. The infant girl with eyes like stars who'd looked at me from her dying mother's arms. I'd hidden her instead, placed her with a trusted family far from the purges, far from the gods' attention, paid them to suppress her power, to raise her as normal, to never let her know what she truly was. The Whitehead family. Oh gods, the Whitehead family. This girl in the fire, this radiant, terrifying, impossible creature, was that infant, all grown up, her suppression broken, her power awakened, and she was staring at me like she could see straight through my skull into the guilty memories I'd been running from for 6 centuries. I dismounted before my conscious mind made the decision. My boots hit the ground, and I was walking toward the fire pit, toward that white-hot column of flame that should have been suicide to approach. The heat didn't touch me. Old magic recognized old magic. Primal fire didn't burn those who'd walked with gods. I stepped into the flames. Up close, she was even more terrifying. Not physically. She was small, maybe 5'5", delicate bone structure, the kind of frame that would make anyone underestimate her. But her eyes, those eyes, they glowed with inner light. Not the normal gold of an alpha's wolf, not even the violet of my ancient bloodline. These were starlight given form, cosmic fire burning in a mortal face. "Who are you?" she asked. Her voice carried harmonics that shouldn't exist in human vocal cords. I could have lied, should have lied. Instead, I told her the truth. "Callum, Alpha King of the Northern Territories. Why did you walk into the fire?" "Because I owed you a debt 600 years overdue. Because I saved you once and doomed you twice. Because looking at you is like staring at every mistake I've ever made. Because," I said carefully, "you're coming with me." Her eyes narrowed. "Am I?" Not a question, a challenge. Behind her, the high priestess was still on her knees, muttering prayers or curses, hard to tell which. The crowd had gone silent, hundreds of witnesses watching the Alpha King face down whatever impossible thing their execution had created. "The temple wanted you dead," I said. "Clearly that didn't work, which means you're no longer their jurisdiction. You're mine." "I'm no one's," she replied. The fire pulsed with her words, reaching higher. "Then you're a rogue primal in the middle of my capital city, and I'm well within my rights to execute you myself for public endangerment." I held her gaze. "Or you can come with me voluntarily, and we can figure out what the hell you are and why you're not Ash right now." She studied me for a long moment. I could feel her power pressing against mine, testing, probing, trying to determine if I was threat or ally. Finally, she spoke. "The priestess said something before the fire started. She said it worked." "What worked?" I glanced past her at Judith, who'd gone very pale. "That's an excellent question." "I want answers," the girl said. "So do I." I extended my hand. "Truce? At least until we figure out who's lying to whom." She looked at my offered hand like it might be a trap. Smart girl. Then she placed her palm against mine. The moment our skin touched, the fire screamed. Not sound. This was something deeper, more primal. Reality itself shrieked as two incompatible magics met and recognized each other. The white flames exploded outward in a shockwave that sent the entire crowd to their knees. And in that instant of contact, I saw her. Not the girl standing before me, but the infant I'd saved. The child I'd condemned to suppression and hiding. The primal who should have grown up knowing her power, her heritage, her truth. She saw me too. I felt her consciousness slam into mine, felt her rifle through my memories like pages in a book, saw the moment she found it, the night I'd placed her with the Whitehead family, the blood magic I'd used to bind her power, the promise I'd made to her dying mother. Keep her safe, keep her hidden, keep her human. I'd kept 2 out of 3. She yanked her hand back, eyes wide with betrayal and understanding. You did this to me. You broke me. I saved you," I said quietly. "You crippled me." The fire roared higher, responding to her rage. 22 years I thought I was defective, cursed, wrong, and it was you. Yes, no point denying it. It was me. She drew back her fist, small, delicate, should have been harmless. I didn't move to block. Her punch never landed. Instead, she swayed, the fire flickering. Her eyes rolled back and she collapsed. I caught her before she hit the ground, my arms closing around her unconscious form. The flames died instantly, leaving us standing in a circle of scorched earth and stunned silence. Her skin was unmarked. Perfect. But I could feel her power depleting rapidly, the awakening having burned through her reserves faster than her mortal body could sustain. "The girl is under crown protection," I announced to the courtyard. My voice carried alpha authority that compelled obedience. "Anyone who questions this answers to me personally." I looked at Judith. She was still kneeling, tears streaming down her face. "You and I said coldly, "are going to have a very long conversation about what you did here today." She nodded mutely. I carried the unconscious primal to my horse, settling her across the saddle before mounting behind her. She weighed almost nothing, felt fragile as glass in my arms, but I'd felt her power, seen what she was capable of. This fragile girl was the most dangerous thing to walk the earth in 600 years, and I'd just claimed responsibility for her. Leo was going to kill me. As I rode out of the courtyard, I felt her stir against my chest. Her eyes opened, still glowing faintly, still not quite human. "Why?" she whispered. "Why save me twice?" I looked down at her, at this impossible creature who'd survived execution and awakening and my own guilty conscience. "Because," I said quietly, 600 years ago, I promised your mother I'd keep you safe. I'm not very good at breaking promises." She studied my face, searching for lies. "What am I?" she asked. "The end of everything I've built. The beginning of something I can't control. The reckoning I've been running from since the gods died. You're primal," I told her. "You're what came before alphas, before the hierarchy, before the world learned to fear its own power. And that's why they tried to burn me. That's why they'll keep trying to burn you." I tightened my grip as we rode through the city gates, "which is why you're staying with me until you learn to control what you are. And if I don't want to stay," I met her star-bright eyes, "then you'll die, because everyone who knows what you are will try to kill you. And right now, you don't know the first thing about using that power without burning yourself out." She was quiet for a long moment. "What's your name?" I asked. "Your real name, not just Sarah Whitehead." "I don't know," she said softly. "I don't remember anything before the Whiteheads, before the suppression." My chest tightened with guilt. "Then we'll find out together." She closed her eyes, exhaustion finally claiming her. And as I rode toward my fortress with a primal in my arms, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just set in motion events that would either save the world or end it, possibly both. Chapter 3, 60 days later. Sarah. The coronation gown weighed 14 pounds. I knew because I'd asked. Silk and silver thread, moonstone beading, centuries-old lace that had adorned queens before the kingdom even had a name. The seamstresses had worked for 3 weeks straight to create it, their fingers bleeding from the intricate needlework. They'd made it for me. For the Omega who wasn't supposed to exist. The cursed girl they'd thrown into fire 60 days ago. I stood in front of the mirror in my chambers. My chambers. Not a cell, not a prison, but rooms in the Alpha King's fortress that rivaled the temple's grandest suites, and barely recognized my reflection. The girl who'd knelt in that fire pit had been soft, uncertain, afraid. This woman staring back at me was none of those things. My hair, once dull brown, now held threads of silver white that caught the light like starfire. My eyes, which had been ordinary hazel, glowed with subtle luminescence, even when I wasn't using power. My skin seemed to radiate faint warmth, as if the fire I'd survived still burned somewhere beneath the surface. I looked like something from the old stories, the ones parents told children to frighten them into obedience. "You look terrified," a voice said from the doorway. I turned to find Leo standing there, resplendent in his formal guard captain uniform, black leather and silver insignia, twin swords crossed on his back. He'd been Callum's right hand for the past 300 years, and in the 60 days I'd been here, he'd become something close to a friend. "I am terrified," I admitted. "Good." He stepped into the room, moving with the easy grace of a predator. Anyone who isn't terrified before their coronation is either lying or stupid. Callum wasn't terrified. Callum is a 1,000-year-old immortal who's died 7 times and come back. He doesn't count. Leo studied me with those sharp amber eyes. You, on the other hand, are 60 days out from a fire pit, execution, and about to crown yourself Queen of the Northern Territories. Terror seems appropriate. Crown myself. That was the controversial part. Traditional coronation protocol required the Alpha King to place the crown on his chosen queen's head, a symbol of his authority granting her legitimacy, of her power being derived from his. I'd told Callum exactly where he could shove his traditional protocol. If I was going to be queen, I'd claim it myself. No man's permission, no borrowed authority. He'd laughed, actually laughed, and said, "I wouldn't have it any other way." "The guests are arriving," Leo said. "Representatives from every major pack in the territories, some minor packs too. Everyone wants to see if the rumors are true." "Which rumors?" I asked dryly. That I'm primal? That I survived divine fire? That I'm the Alpha King's mate? I paused. That I'm all three? Leo's expression flickered with something I couldn't read. Are you? His mate? I turned back to the mirror, adjusting the gown's neckline. We haven't formalized anything. That's not what I asked. No, it wasn't. The truth was complicated. In the 60 days since Callum had carried me from that fire pit, we'd been something. Not lovers. We hadn't crossed that line, though the tension sang between us like a taut wire. Not just allies, though we trained together daily, him teaching me to control the power that wanted to consume me, something deeper, something that terrified me more than the fire had. Through our brief moment of contact in the flames, I'd seen into his mind, seen the night he'd saved me as an infant, seen him place me with the Whiteheads, bind my power with blood magic, promise my dying mother he'd keep me hidden. He'd kept that promise, and it had cost me everything, but he'd also saved my life. Twice now. I didn't know if I loved him or hated him or some impossible combination of both. He's been avoiding you, Leo observed. I've been avoiding him, I corrected. There's a difference. Is there? I met Leo's eyes in the mirror. 3 days ago, I asked him about my mother, about who she was, where she came from, why the gods wanted primals dead. He changed the subject. Maybe he doesn't know. He knows. My hands clenched in the gown's fabric. He was there. He fought in the primal purges. He helped end my kind. And now I'm supposed to stand beside him and pretend that's not dripping with blood and hypocrisy? Leo was quiet for a moment. You could refuse the coronation. Walk away. Build your own life somewhere else. Could I? The past 60 days had been a whirlwind of discovery and terror. Learning that every flame responded to my will, that I could burn hot enough to melt stone or gentle enough to light a candle without touching it, that my power wasn't the defective Omega weakness I'd believed, but something so dangerous the gods themselves had tried to exterminate it. Callum's trainers had pushed me hard, combat instructors teaching me to fight in both human and wolf form, because yes, I had a wolf now, a creature of silver fire that was neither alpha nor beta nor omega, but something entirely other. Magical theorists helping me understand the cosmic forces I could tap into, political advisors grooming me for the role I was about to claim. And through it all, Callum had watched, distant but present, protective but not possessive, keeping his promise to my mother even now, keep her safe. I can't walk away, I said finally. Too many people are watching. If I refuse, it sends a message that primals are still weak, still ashamed, still hiding. And if you accept, then I show them what we really are. I turned from the mirror to face Leo directly. The temple wanted me dead because they feared what I represent. The old families want me controlled because they're terrified of change. Even the gods, if they still exist somewhere, probably want me erased. I felt the fire kindle in my chest, warm and ready. So I'm going to stand in that throne room, place that crown on my own head, and dare any of them to stop me. Leo smiled, fierce and approving. Now you sound like a queen. A knock at the door. One of the servants, a young man named Timothy, poked his head in nervously. My lady, the ceremony begins in 20 minutes. The king requests your presence in the antechamber. Tell the king, I said slowly, that I'll arrive when I'm ready, not before. Timothy's eyes widened. But that wasn't a request. He fled. Leo laughed quietly. You're going to give him a heart attack one of these days. Callum's had 1,000 years to get used to people defying him. It's good for his character development. I took one last look at myself in the mirror. The gown, the silver hair, the glowing eyes, the woman who'd burned and survived. Leo, I said quietly, when I walk into that throne room, will I have allies? He moved to stand beside me, solid and steady. You'll have me. You'll have the king, whether you like it or not. You'll have everyone who's tired of the old ways strangling us. And enemies? More than you can count. He met my eyes seriously. High Priestess Judith is required to attend. She's been unstable since the fire pit, ranting about prophecies and divine punishment. My stomach tightened. I hadn't seen Judith since that day, hadn't wanted to confront whatever complicated emotions churned beneath the surface when I thought about the woman who'd ordered my execution. What kind of prophecies? The kind that get people burned for heresy if they're not careful. Leo hesitated. She's been saying you're not just primal, that you're something specific, something the old texts warned about. What? The Unmaker. His voice dropped. The one who burns away the old world to make room for the new. Cold slid down my spine despite the warmth in my chest. That's insane. Is it? Look at what's happened in 60 days. The temple's authority is crumbling because you survived their execution. The old families are terrified because you prove bloodline hierarchy is a lie. Even Callum's absolute rule is being questioned because he claimed you without explanation. Leo turned to face me fully. You're already unmaking the world, Sarah, whether you meant to or not. Before I could respond, another knock, harder this time, more insistent. The door opened without permission. Callum stood there, and the sight of him in full ceremonial regalia stole my breath. Black armor chased with silver, a cloak of midnight fur, the ancient crown of the Alpha Kings resting on his dark hair. But it was his eyes that caught me, those impossible violet eyes that had seen centuries pass. "We need to talk," he said. "Now." "The ceremony can wait." He looked at Leo. "Give us a moment." Leo glanced at me for permission. I nodded, and he left, closing the door behind him. Silence stretched between us. 60 days of careful distance, of avoiding the conversation we both knew was coming. "You look beautiful," Callum said finally. "You look terrified," I replied, echoing Leo's earlier words. "I am." He moved into the room, but kept his distance. "Sarah, I need to tell you something before the coronation, before you make any formal commitments." My chest tightened. "What?" "Judith sent me a gift this morning." He reached into his armor and pulled out a small wooden box. This was in it. He opened the box. Inside, on a bed of white silk, lay a severed tongue. I recoiled. "What?" "There's a note." Callum's voice was steady, but I could see tension in his jaw. Written in blood, it says, "I cannot speak the truth, so I send you its price. Protect her. The prophecy moves." I stared at the grotesque offering. She cut out her own tongue? Apparently. Callum closed the box carefully. The question is why? What truth is she trying to protect? What prophecy? Leo mentioned something about me being an unmaker. Callum's expression darkened. He shouldn't have... Is it true? I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its perfect arrangement. The old texts are vague, contradictory, but there are references to a primal who would emerge when the world became too rigid, too locked in its hierarchies, a force of change that couldn't be controlled or stopped. He looked at me. A destroyer and a creator in one. "And you think that's me?" "I think," he said carefully, "that you're standing at a crossroads. In 20 minutes, you'll crown yourself, claim power, become a symbol. And once you do, there's no going back. The forces that want you dead will intensify. The people who fear change will unite against you." He stepped closer. "I need to know you're ready for that." I met his violet gaze. "Are you asking as the Alpha King, or as the man who saved me?" "As both. As..." He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. "As someone who cares whether you survive what's coming." The fire in my chest flared, responding to the emotion in his voice. "You still haven't told me about my mother, about who she really was." "I know." "Why?" Callum's jaw worked. "Because once I tell you, you'll understand the full weight of what you're inheriting, and I'm selfish enough to want you to have these last moments of peace before that burden crushes you." "I'm stronger than you think." "I know exactly how strong you are." His voice roughened. "That's what terrifies me." We stood there, 2 feet apart, a chasm of unspoken truth between us. Finally, I spoke. "After the coronation, you'll tell me everything." "Yes. And then we'll decide what we are to each other, No more distance. No more avoiding. Something blazed in his eyes. Agreed. A bell tolled in the distance. The ceremony was beginning. Callum offered his arm. Ready to unmake the world, my queen? I placed my hand on his arm, feeling the spark of power where we touched. Let's find out. Chapter 4. The First Night. Sarah. The cell wasn't what I expected. When Callum had said I was under Crown protection, I'd imagined a dungeon. Stone walls, iron bars, maybe some decorative chains to complete the aesthetic of dangerous creature we're keeping alive against our better judgment. Instead, he'd brought me to a guest suite in the fortress's east tower. Guest suite, as if I were visiting royalty instead of a failed execution. The room was larger than my entire family's sitting room had been. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked forests that stretched to the horizon. Furniture that looked ancient and priceless. A bed so massive it could sleep 4 people comfortably. And a lock on the outside of the door. So, not quite a prison. Not quite freedom. I sat on the edge of that enormous bed, still wearing the charred remains of my execution gown, and tried to process the past 12 hours. Thrown into consecrated fire. Check. Discovered I was primal, not Omega. Check. Learned the Alpha King had suppressed my powers as an infant. Check. Been carried 40 miles while unconscious, only to wake up in a fortress surrounded by warriors who looked at me like I might explode at any moment. Check. It was a lot. A knock at the door. Not the lock clicking open, an actual polite knock, as if I had a choice about visitors. "Come in," I called, my voice hoarse from smoke inhalation that was already healing with supernatural speed. The door opened. Callum entered, carrying a tray laden with food and what looked like medical supplies. He'd changed out of his formal armor into simple black clothes that somehow made him look more dangerous, not less. "How are you feeling?" he asked, setting the tray on a side table. Like I was burned alive and survived. I touched my arms where the flames had engulfed me. The skin was perfect, unmarked. Shouldn't I have scars? Primal fire doesn't burn primals, it transforms them. He moved to the windows, keeping distance between us. Your body is adjusting to what you actually are instead of what the suppression forced you to be. And what am I, exactly? His back was to me, silhouetted against the fading light. Have you looked in a mirror since the fire? I hadn't, too afraid of what I might see. Callum gestured to the full-length mirror near the wardrobe. Look. I stood on shaky legs and crossed to the mirror. The girl staring back at me was familiar, but wrong. Same basic features. Narrow face, pointed chin, the slight overbite I'd always been self-conscious about. But her eyes glowed with inner light. Her brown hair had threads of silver white running through it, and her skin seemed to radiate subtle warmth, like she carried summer beneath her surface. I don't look human, I whispered. You are human. Mostly. Callum's reflection appeared behind mine, though he stood 10 feet back in reality. Primals are what humans became when the moon goddess first blessed them with the ability to shift. You're not less human. You're more. I turned from the mirror to face him directly. You said you saved me as an infant. From the purges. His expression shuddered. Yes. Why? Because, and don't say it was duty or mercy or any other noble lie, I interrupted. You walked into divine fire today. You claimed me in front of the entire capital. You brought me to your private fortress. Why? Callum was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. What do you see when you look at me? Strange question. I see the Alpha King, a 1,000-year-old warrior, someone powerful enough that even gods feared him. Look deeper. I frowned, but focused on him, really looked. And that's when I saw it, the shimmer around his edges like heat distortion, the way his shadow moved fractionally out of sync with his body, the sense that what I was seeing wasn't quite real. You're not entirely here, I said slowly. Part of you is somewhere else? The Shadow Roads, he confirmed. I walk between worlds, have for 800 years, ever since I made a bargain with the god of twilight to gain the power I needed to end the primal purges. You bargained with a god to kill my kind? I bargained with a god to stop the war that was destroying everything. His violet eyes met mine. The purges weren't some righteous crusade, Sarah. They were genocide born from fear. Primals were too powerful, too unpredictable. The established order, the hierarchy of Alpha, Beta, Omega, felt threatened. He moved closer, just a step. So the gods declared primals an abomination, and wolves who'd lived peacefully for centuries suddenly turned on each other. Primals fought back. The world burned. And you chose a side. I chose survival. His voice hardened. I was 23 years old, barely alpha, watching my entire pack get slaughtered because we harbored primals. So yes, I made a bargain, gained the power to walk shadows, to move faster than thought, to be in 10 places simultaneously. He looked away, and I used that power to hunt, to kill, to end the war the only way it could end, with primals extinct. The fire in my chest flared hot and angry. Except you saved one. Why? Because I was tired, he said simply. Tired of killing, tired of the screaming. Your mother was the last. She'd been hiding for months, pregnant with you, trying to find somewhere safe to give birth. His hands clenched. I tracked her to an abandoned temple. She knew she couldn't fight. Giving birth had weakened her too much. So she made me an offer. What offer? A life for a life. Callum's voice dropped. She would die quietly, without fighting, without alerting the other primals who might have rallied to save her. In exchange, I would take you, hide you, suppress your power, and raise you human. My breath caught. You promised her. I promised her. He finally looked at me again. And then I broke that promise by letting the Whiteheads take you instead, by using blood magic to bind your power so thoroughly you thought you were defective, by walking away and telling myself I'd saved you. You did save me. I crippled you. The words exploded out of him. 22 years, Sarah. 22 years you suffered because I was too much of a coward to actually raise you myself. Too afraid that if I kept you close, someone would figure out what you were. He turned away sharply, and I was right, because the moment your suppression cracked, the moment you showed even a hint of what you really are, they tried to burn you alive. The anger in my chest cooled, replaced by something more complicated. How did the suppression break? I don't know. Callum ran a hand through his hair. Blood magic that's strong should have lasted your entire life. Something triggered its collapse. A thought occurred to me. My father, Albert Whitehead. He died 3 months ago. Callum went very still. How? Border raid. Rogues attacked his patrol. He died defending his squad. I remembered the funeral, the honor guard, my brother's stone face as they burned the body according to tradition. They said he fought like a demon, took down 20 rogues before they finally brought him down. Rogues don't attack in groups of 20, Callum said slowly, and they don't target specific patrols. Ice formed in my stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying your father's death was too convenient. 3 months later, the suppression fails. The temple immediately moves to execute you. The high priestess, who should have had no idea what you were, knows exactly what kind of fire to use. He turned to face me. Someone orchestrated this. All of it. Who? That's what I need to find out. He moved to the window, looking out at the darkening forest. But right now, you're exhausted. You need food and rest. We'll figure out the conspiracy tomorrow. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. Your body is rebuilding itself at a cellular level. It needs fuel. I wanted to argue, but my stomach chose that moment to growl traitorously. Callum's mouth twitched in something almost like a smile. I sat at the small table and picked at the food. Bread, cheese, some kind of roasted meat. It tasted like ash in my mouth, but I forced it down. Can I ask you something? I said after a few minutes. Yes. When you touched me in the fire, when our hands connected, I saw into your mind, saw memories. I paused. Did you see mine? Callum was quiet. Then, yes. What did you see? Everything the suppression stole from you. His voice was rough. Every time you tried to shift and failed. Every time your family looked at you with disappointment. Every moment you thought you were broken. He turned from the window, and I saw anguish in his eyes. I saw what I did to you, and I'm sorry, Sarah. Sorrier than words can express. The sincerity in his voice made my throat tight. If you could go back, would you do it differently? Yes. No, I don't know, he laughed. No, bitterly. If I'd raised you myself, you would have known what you were, but you also would have been hunted, constantly. Would have spent your whole life running and hiding and fighting. Instead, I spent it thinking I was cursed. Yes. He met my eyes. I don't know which is worse, and I'll spend the rest of my very long life wondering if I made the right choice. I set down the bread, suddenly not hungry at all. What happens now? Now you rest. Tomorrow we start training. You have power but no control. That makes you as dangerous to yourself as to anyone else. And after training? Callum's expression was unreadable. After training, you decide what you want to be. Whether you want to hide and live quietly. Whether you want to use your power publicly. Whether you want anything to do with me at all. And you'll accept whatever I choose? I'll protect whatever you choose, he corrected, whether I like it or not. I stood, exhaustion finally catching up with me. I saw something else in your memories when we touched. He went very still. What? You loved her. My mother. The primal you killed. Callum's face could have been carved from stone. That's not... Don't lie. I moved closer, drawn by something I didn't understand. I saw it. The way you looked at her, the way it destroyed you to end her life. She was the enemy. She was pregnant and alone and terrified. I stopped an arm's length away. You loved her and you killed her anyway. Yes, he said hoarsely, and I've regretted it every day for 600 years. We stood there, so close I could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell something wild and ancient that clung to his skin. What was her name? I whispered. My mother. You never said her name. Callum's eyes closed. Kira. Her name was Kira Ashford. Ashford, not Whitehead. That was my real name. Thank you, I said quietly. His eyes opened, surprised. For what? For telling me the truth. Finally. I turned toward the massive bed, suddenly so tired I could barely stand. Behind me, I heard Callum move toward the door. Sarah, he said, hand on the doorknob. Yes? You asked why I walked into the fire today, why I claimed you. I looked back at him, because when I saw you standing in those flames, he said quietly, unmarked and radiant and absolutely terrifying, I saw your mother. And I couldn't let you die the way she did. I couldn't make the same mistake twice. He left before I could respond, the door clicking shut behind him. I stood there for a long moment, processing his words. Then I crossed to the bed and collapsed onto it fully clothed. My last thought before sleep claimed me. He didn't lock the door. Callum. I made it exactly 3 steps down the corridor before Leo intercepted me. Well? My captain demanded. How is she? Alive, coherent, dangerously close to figuring out how much I haven't told her. Leo fell into step beside me. The council is demanding answers. They want to know why you claimed and executed Primal, why you brought her here, what your intentions are. My intentions are to keep her alive long enough to learn control. And after that? I didn't answer. We walked through the fortress in silence, our footsteps echoing off stone walls that had stood for 8 centuries. I'd built this place after the purges, after the gods retreated, after I'd climbed to power on a mountain of corpses and compromise. It had always felt like a monument to survival. Now it felt like a tomb. Callum, Leo said finally, I've known you for 300 years, fought beside you, bled with you, watched you make impossible choices. He stopped, forcing me to stop too. That girl in there is Kira's daughter. Kira, who you loved. Kira, who you killed. And now you've brought her here, given her protection, looked at her like... Don't. Like you're making the same mistake again, Leo finished. My hands clenched. I'm not. Aren't you? You couldn't save Kira. So now you're determined to save her daughter. But Sarah isn't Kira, and she's going to want answers you can't give her. I know. Do you? Leo's amber eyes were hard. Because when she finds out the whole truth, When she learns what you really are and what you've been hiding, she's going to burn this fortress to the ground with you in it." He was right. Of course he was right. But I'd made a promise 600 years ago, and I'd be damned if I broke it again. "Let her try," I said quietly. "I've been burned before." Chapter 5, The Trials. Sarah, Day 10. They said I needed training. I didn't need training. I needed permission to remember. The difference became clear the first time Callum took me to the practice grounds, a massive courtyard carved from black stone, warded with spells old enough that even he didn't know who'd cast them. Magic that prevented catastrophic power from destroying the fortress. We'd need it. "Show me your wolf," Callum said, standing 20 feet away in fighting leathers. I'd been able to shift since the fire pit. Not consciously at first. It had happened in my sleep on day 3, terrifying the servants who'd come to wake me and found a silver wolf the size of a horse instead of a girl. But I'd learned to control the transformation. Mostly. I closed my eyes and reached for that place inside where human ended and other began. The shift was instantaneous. No pain, no struggle. One moment woman, the next moment wolf. Fur the color of moonlight, eyes burning with starfire. Power thrumming through every muscle. I heard Callum's sharp intake of breath. "Impossible," he murmured. I cocked my head, questioning. "You're larger than any alpha I've ever seen. Larger than me." He circled slowly, studying. "And your eyes. Sarah, your eyes aren't wolf eyes anymore." I knew. I'd seen them in the mirror. They looked like galaxies condensed into irises, swirling light and darkness in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Try to attack me," Callum said. "Don't hold back." I hesitated. Even in wolf form, he was the Alpha King. Attacking him felt wrong on an instinctual level. "That's the conditioning talking," he said, reading my body language. "The hierarchy that was forced onto wolves after the purges. Alpha dominates Beta. Beta dominates Omega. Everyone submits to the king." He shifted into his own wolf form. Midnight black, violet eyes blazing, power radiating like heat from a forge. "But you're not part of that hierarchy. You're primal. You bow to no one, so attack me like you mean it." Something in his words unlocked something in me. I lunged, fast, faster than I'd known I could move. My jaws aimed for his throat, my weight meant to bear him down. A killing strike. Callum vanished. Not dodged, vanished. One instant there, the next gone completely. I skidded across the stone, confused, then felt his teeth close on the back of my neck. Not hard enough to break skin, but hard enough to prove he could have. He released me and stepped back, shifting to human form. Shadow walking. I can move through darkness instantaneously. It's the power I gained from the god of twilight. I shifted back too, breathing hard. That's not fair. War isn't fair. Neither is survival. He offered me a hand up. Again. This time, use your fire. Day 15. The first time I burned someone, it was an accident. We'd been sparring, me in human form now, learning hand-to-hand combat. My opponent was a veteran warrior named Jesse, built like a mountain and fast, despite his size. He came at me with a combination I didn't see coming. His fist connected with my ribs, and pain exploded through my side. I reacted on instinct. Fire erupted from my hands. Not red-orange flame, but white-hot plasma that turned the air to steam. It hit Jesse square in the chest and sent him flying backward 15 feet. He screamed. I froze. Horror flooding through me. The smell of burning flesh made my stomach heave. Callum was there in an instant, shadow walking to Jesse's side. His hands glowed with violet light as he pressed them to Jesse's chest, and I watched in shock as the burns began to heal. "I didn't know you could heal," I said numbly. "I can't, not really." Callum's jaw was tight with concentration. I'm borrowing time from the shadow roads, reversing the damage by pulling him back to a moment before he was burned. It costs me, but it works. Jesse's breathing steadied. The burns faded to pink scars, then to unmarked skin. His eyes opened, dazed but alive. "What the hell was that?" he gasped. "Primal fire," Callum said, "and a lesson for both of you. Sarah, you can't panic. The fire responds to emotion, fear, anger, pain. It amplifies everything. You need to stay calm or you'll kill someone by accident." My hands were shaking. I could have killed him. Yes. Callum stood, helping Jesse to his feet. Which is why we keep training until you have control. But Jesse was looking at me differently now, not with respect or curiosity, with fear. Everyone in the practice yard was looking at me that way. I left before I could see any more of it. Day 18. Tell me about the fire, Callum said. We were in his study, a room lined with books so old they predated written language, knowledge preserved through magic. I sat across from him, nursing a cup of tea that tasted like smoke and starlight. What about it? When you use primal fire, what does it feel like? I considered the question. It doesn't feel hot. That's the first thing people don't understand. Regular fire burns. This feels like memory catching flame. Callum leaned forward, interested. Explain. It's hard to describe. When I burn something, I don't just destroy it. I experience what it was. The wood I burned yesterday, I felt the tree's whole life. Seedling to sapling to ancient oak. Centuries compressed into seconds. I set down the tea. When I burned Jesse, I felt his memories, his childhood, his fears, everything that made him human. And when I pulled the fire back, I had to consciously choose to forget what I'd seen. Otherwise, it stays with me forever. Callum's expression had gone very still. That's not normal primal fire. What do you mean? Primals could burn, could create and control flame, but they couldn't. He trailed off, thinking. Can you show me something? Burn this. He handed me a small wooden box, old, worn, clearly precious to him. I took it carefully. What is it? Something from my past. Burn it, but don't destroy it. Just read it. I cupped the box in my hands and let the fire kindle. Gentle, controlled. The flame licked across the wood without consuming it, and I saw a young man, Callum, centuries younger, barely recognizable, standing in a field of corpses, weeping. In his hands, a wooden box carved by someone he'd loved, someone who'd died. The grief hit me like a physical blow. I gasped and dropped the box, the fire extinguishing instantly. Callum caught the box before it hit the floor. What did you see? You, younger, crying. My voice shook. Someone made that for you. Someone you lost. My brother. Callum's thumb traced the box's carving. He died in the first year of the purges, made me this box the week before. I've carried it for 800 years. He looked at me with something like wonder and terror. Sarah, what you just did, that's not primal fire. That's something older, something from before the goddess created wolves at all. What do you mean? I mean, you're not just primal. You're something specific. He set the box down carefully. The old texts mention a type of primal called a memory keeper. They could burn things and absorb their history, could touch people and know their entire lives, could rewrite memories, erase trauma, or... He stopped. Or what? I pressed. Or burn away someone's sense of self entirely. Leave them a shell with no memories, no personality, no identity. The tea in my stomach turned to ice. I would never, I know, but others might fear you could. Callum ran a hand through his hair. This is why they wanted you dead, Sarah. Memory keepers were considered the most dangerous primals because they didn't just destroy bodies. They could destroy souls. Day 22. The nightmares started. Every time I used my power significantly, I paid a price. The memories I absorbed didn't just fade. They displaced my own. Small things at first. I forgot what I'd eaten for breakfast. Forgot the name of a servant. Forgot which corridor led to my chambers. Then bigger things. On day 22, I woke up and couldn't remember my father's face. I sat bolt upright in bed, panic clawing at my chest. Albert Whitehead, my father, the man who'd raised me, protected me, died for me. I could remember facts about him, his position, his death, his disappointment in me, but his face was gone, erased as cleanly as if it had never existed. I ran to Callum's study, not caring that it was 3 a.m, burst through the door without knocking. He was awake, working at his desk by candlelight. Looked up sharply when I entered, then his expression softened when he saw my face. What happened? My father. I don't remember what he looked like." The words came out broken. "Callum, what's happening to me?" He stood, crossed to me, but didn't touch. "The power has a cost. Everything does. When you absorb memories through fire, they take up space, and there's only so much room. So I'm... what? Forgetting myself? Replacing yourself," he corrected gently. "You're burning away the girl you were and becoming something new, something that's more memory than person. Can you stop it?" "I don't know. Maybe if you stopped using the power, I can't stop." I wrapped my arms around myself. The training, the control, it all requires using fire, and if I don't train, I'm a danger to everyone. Callum's jaw worked. "Then we find another way. A balance. Use the power strategically instead of constantly. And if there's an emergency, if someone attacks and I have to defend myself, then you defend yourself and deal with the cost after." His violet eyes burned with determination. "We'll document everything, Sarah. Write down your memories, your history, your identity. And if you forget, I'll remind you, every single day, if necessary." Something in his voice made my breath catch. "Why? Why do you care so much?" "Because I promised your mother I'd keep you safe." His hands clenched. "And because watching you disappear piece by piece is like losing her all over again, and I won't let that happen." The raw pain in his voice undid something in me. I closed the distance between us and wrapped my arms around him. He froze. Then slowly, his arms came around me too, holding me like I might shatter. We stood there in the candlelight, two broken people clinging to each other against the darkness. "I'm scared," I whispered against his chest. "I know. What if I forget everything? What if I become someone I don't recognize?" "Then I'll tell you who you were," Callum said fiercely, "and I'll help you decide who you want to become. Memory doesn't define you, Sarah. Choice does." I pulled back just enough to look up at him. "Promise?" His thumb brushed across my cheek, wiping away tears I hadn't realized I'd shed. "I promise. And I don't break promises. Not anymore." Day 30. The test came without warning. Assassins. 40 of them. Slipping into the fortress during a supply delivery, moving through the shadows like smoke. I was in my chambers when I heard the screams. No time to think. I shifted and ran. The corridor outside my room was carnage. Guards down, throats slit, blood pooling on stone. The assassins moved with professional efficiency, heading for Callum's study. Oh gods, they were after him. I didn't think, didn't plan, didn't consider the cost. I just burned. Fire exploded from my wolf form, a wave of white plasma that filled the entire corridor. The assassins didn't even have time to scream. They turned to ash before sound could form. 40 lives, 40 sets of memories slamming into me all at once. I saw their childhoods, their training, their reasons for accepting this contract. Saw the shadowy figure who'd hired them, features hidden but intent clear. Kill the Alpha King before he makes the Primal his queen. Saw their deaths from their perspective. Felt their terror as the fire consumed them. Then I was on the ground, human again, screaming as my mind tried to process 40 lifetimes simultaneously. Strong arms caught me, violet eyes swimming in my vision. "Sarah! Sarah! Look at me!" I tried to focus on Callum's face, but kept seeing the assassins' faces overlaying his, kept feeling their deaths, their memories, their... "What's your name?" Callum demanded, his hands on either side of my face. "Tell me your name!" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I couldn't remember. Gods, I couldn't remember my own name. Panic exploded through me. I tried to pull away, but Callum held firm. "You're Sarah Ashford," he said clearly. "Daughter of Kira Ashford, Primal, Memory Keeper. You were born 22 years ago. You survived a fire pit execution. You're the strongest person I've ever met." The words anchored me. Slowly the assassin's memories faded to background noise. My own identity reasserted itself. "Sarah," I gasped. "Yes, Sarah." Relief flooded his face. "You're Sarah. You're here. You're safe." I looked around at the destruction I'd caused. Ash everywhere. Scorch marks on the walls. 40 people dead by my hand. "I killed them," I whispered. "You saved my life. Callum corrected. They came to assassinate me. You stopped them. I absorbed their memories. I nearly lost myself. But you didn't. He pulled me close. You came back. You're still here. I clung to him, shaking. How many more times can I do this? How many more memories can I absorb before there's nothing left of me? Callum's arms tightened around me. Then we stop training. We find another way. No. I pulled back, forcing strength into my voice. They'll keep coming. Assassins, enemies, people who want us dead. And if I'm not ready, if I can't defend myself, I'm as good as dead anyway. Sarah, promise me something, I interrupted. Promise that if I forget who I am completely, you'll tell me. You'll show me who I was, and you'll let me choose whether to keep fighting or to end it. Horror flashed across his face. I won't kill you. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me make that choice myself if the time comes. We stared at each other. Then, finally, Callum nodded. I promise. I stood on shaky legs. My body was already healing from the power expenditure, but my mind felt fractured, fragmented. Who ordered the assassination? I asked. I don't know, but we'll find out. Callum's expression had gone cold and dangerous. And when we do, they'll wish you'd killed them as mercifully as you killed these assassins. He offered me his hand. Come on, let's get you cleaned up. Then you're going to tell me everything you saw in their memories. I took his hand, letting him pull me to my feet, and tried not to think about what else I might have lost in that corridor of ash and death. Chapter 6. The Truth About the Priestess. Sarah. I went to the dungeons to kill her. That was the plan. Simple, clean. Judith had thrown me into fire, had orchestrated my execution, had smiled while reading the decree that condemned me. She deserved death. At least, that's what I told myself as I descended the spiral stairs into the fortress's underbelly. The dungeons were ancient, older than Callum's rule, older than the fortress itself. They'd been carved from bedrock by some long-dead civilization, and the stone still held traces of their magic. Wards that prevented escape, spells that dampened power, perfect for holding a high priestess who knew too much. The guard on duty, a stoic woman named Donna, nodded as I approached. Luna! I still wasn't used to the title, hadn't formalized anything with Callum beyond our strange partnership, but the fortress staff had started calling me Luna anyway, as if my position was inevitable. I need to see the prisoner, I said. Donna's expression flickered with concern. The king said no one was to— The king doesn't give me orders. The words came out sharper than intended. Open the door! She hesitated, then complied. The heavy iron door swung open with a groan of protest. Inside, Judith sat on a stone bench, chains around her wrists that prevented her from using any divine magic the temple had granted her. She looked up as I entered, and I saw her face clearly for the first time since the fire pit. She'd aged a decade in 45 days. Her skin was gray, stretched tight over bones that showed too clearly. Her eyes, once bright with zealous certainty, were sunken and haunted. And her mouth. The place where her tongue had been was a scarred ruin. The self-inflicted wound had healed wrong, leaving her unable to speak. She saw me and scrambled backward, pressing against the wall. Not fear. Something worse. Hope. I felt fire kindle in my chest, hot and ready. You threw me into consecrated fire, condemned me. For existing? Why shouldn't I kill you right now? Judith couldn't answer, could only stare at me with those desperate eyes. I could burn you, I continued, stepping closer. Make you feel what I felt. Every moment of thinking I was cursed, defective, wrong. I could make you live through 22 years of that pain in 22 seconds. I raised my hand, flame dancing across my fingers. Judith didn't flinch, didn't try to escape. Instead, she reached into her ragged prison gown and pulled out a piece of parchment, held it out to me with shaking hands. I took it, suspicious. It was a letter, written in elegant script that must have taken hours with her ruined mouth bleeding the whole time. Sarah Ashford, I cannot speak the truths that must be spoken, so I write them in blood and hope. You hate me. You should. I would hate me too. But before you kill me, you must understand. I threw you in the fire because I loved you. Your mother, Kira, was my sister, blood of my blood. When she died, when that monster Callum murdered her, I swore I would protect her child, protect you. But I was young, powerless. The purges were still happening. I couldn't fight the Alpha King, couldn't defy the gods, couldn't keep you safe through force. So I made a different choice. I entered the temple, rose through the ranks, learned every secret, every ritual, every spell, and I waited. 15 years I waited for the right moment, for the suppression to crack, for your power to start leaking through, because I knew the old texts told me that primal awakening requires trauma, requires death and rebirth, requires fire. The execution was supposed to trigger your transformation safely. The consecrated pit has catacombs beneath it, passages that lead to the scorched lands where your mother's people still hide. I left them open for you. You were supposed to burn through the chains, discover your power in private, and escape through the tunnels. But he came, the Alpha King, the murderer. And now he has you, and I cannot tell you the truth of what he is, what he's done, what he plans. So I cut out my tongue, the one organ that might betray secrets under torture or truth spells. I send you this letter instead. Your mother is alive. I stopped reading, reread the last line 3 times. Your mother is alive. That's impossible, I whispered. Callum said. Judith was nodding frantically, pointing at the letter. Keep reading. Callum thinks he killed her. That's what makes him dangerous. He believes his own lies. When he drove his blade through Kira's heart that night, she used the last of her primal fire to fake her death, slowed her heartbeat to nothing, made her blood run cold, convinced him she was gone. Then when he took you and left, she healed. Barely. It took her months to recover. Months hiding in the scorched lands, mourning the daughter stolen from her, planning revenge. She's there now, in the ruins of the first temple, gathering the surviving primals, building an army. They call themselves the Unbound, and they're waiting for you, Sarah, waiting for the Memory Keeper to come home. I tried to send you to her safely. Instead, I sent you to your mother's murderer, and now I can only pray you're strong enough to escape him before he realizes what you truly are. Because if Callum discovers you're a memory keeper, if he understands that you could burn away his carefully constructed lies and reveal the truth of what he did during the purges, he will kill you. Just like he killed everyone else who threatened to expose him. Go to the scorched lands, find your mother, learn who you really are. And when you see Kira, tell her I'm sorry I failed her again. Your aunt, Judith Hawley. The letter fell from my numb fingers. My mother was alive. Judith was my aunt. Everything Callum told me was a lie. No, that couldn't be right. Callum had shown me his memories when we touched in the fire. I'd seen him kill my mother, seen his grief, his regret, his memory keeper. The realization hit like a physical blow. I could burn memories, could absorb them, rewrite them, create false ones if I wanted. And if I could do that, why couldn't Callum? He'd bargained with a god, walked shadow roads between worlds. Who knew what powers he possessed that he'd never shown me? What if the memories I'd seen were fabricated? What if everything he'd told me about protecting me, about keeping his promise, about caring? What if it was all manipulation to keep me controlled? I looked at Judith, really looked at her. She had my mother's eyes. Now that I saw it, the resemblance was unmistakable. Same eye shape, same slight upturn at the corners. Family. How do I get to the scorched lands? I asked, my voice hollow. Judith gestured frantically at the parchment. At the bottom, barely visible, was a crude map. The northern route through the Shadow Pass, 3 days' travel on foot. If you're lying to me, I started. Judith shook her head violently, pointed to her ruined mouth, pointed to her heart, then placed both hands together in the universal gesture of prayer. She was begging me to believe her. I picked up the letter, folded it carefully, and tucked it into my jacket. Thank you, I said quietly. Tears streamed down Judith's face. She reached through the bars and gripped my hand. Her touch was cold, desperate. Then she pressed something into my palm, a small crystal pendant on a silver chain. I held it up to the torchlight. The crystal pulsed with faint inner fire, primal magic. What is this? Judith made a complex gesture, pointed to the crystal, then to her own chest. then to the ceiling, miming something rising. A signal? A beacon? She nodded frantically when I guessed correctly. This will call someone? Guide them to me? Another nod. Then she pointed north, to where the scorched lands waited. My mother, I breathed. This will help me find my mother. Judith smiled through her tears, the first genuine smile I'd seen on her face since the fire pit. I slipped the chain over my head, tucking the crystal beneath my shirt where it rested warm against my skin. I'll go, I said. I'll find the truth, and if Callum has been lying... Judith gripped my hand tighter. Her eyes burned with sudden intensity. She pulled me closer to the bars and used her other hand to trace symbols on my palm. It took me a moment to understand. She was writing. Trust. No, one. Then she added one more symbol. Even me. I jerked back, confused. What? But Judith had released my hand and retreated to her bench. She turned her face to the wall, clearly done with the conversation. Wait, what do you mean, even you? You're telling me to trust no one, including you? That doesn't make sense. She didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge I'd spoken. Judith. Talking to prisoners, my queen? I spun around. Callum stood in the doorway, violet eyes unreadable. My hand went instinctively to the crystal hidden beneath my shirt. How long had he been standing there? What had he heard? I wanted answers, I said, keeping my voice steady. Find any? He stepped into the cell and suddenly the space felt much smaller. Only more questions. Callum's gaze shifted to Judith's, turned back, then to me. She can't speak. Cutting out her tongue was... extreme. She had her reasons. I'm sure she did. He moved closer, and I fought the urge to step back. You know she's a fanatic, right? High priestess of a temple that's been executing primals for centuries. Whatever she told you, she didn't tell me anything. She can't. Then whatever she wrote you, Callum corrected, his eyes flicking to my jacket where I'd stashed the letter. It's probably lies designed to turn you against me. Is it? I met his violet gaze directly. Or is she telling the truth you've been hiding? Something dangerous flashed in his expression. What did she say? That my mother is alive. Silence. Heavy and suffocating. That's not possible, Callum said finally. I was there. I felt her heart stop. I watched her die. You think you watched her die, but you also thought I'd die in the fire pit. You thought primals were extinct. You've been wrong before. Sarah, show me. I stepped closer, challenging. You can walk shadow roads. You can move through time. Show me the memory of that night. The real memory, not the sanitized version you fed me when we touched in the fire. Callum's jaw worked. You don't want to see that. I don't care what I want. I care about the truth. The truth will destroy you. Then let it. The fire in my chest flared hot. I'm tired of being protected. Tired of half-truths and careful lies. If my mother is dead, prove it. Show me exactly how you killed her. And if I do, if I show you every detail of that night, the blood, the screaming, the way she begged me to save you instead of her, what then? Then I'll know, I said quietly. One way or the other, I'll know. Callum stared at me for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. If I show you this, there's no going back. You'll see things that will change how you look at me, at yourself, at everything. I placed my hand in his. The cell disappeared. We stood in a different place, a different time. An abandoned temple, moonlight streaming through broken windows. And there, in the center of a ritual circle, was a woman with my face. Kira, my mother. She was beautiful and terrible, pregnant, weakened, but still burning with primal fire that made her skin glow like a star. And standing over her, sword in hand, was a younger Callum. He looked sick, exhausted, like he'd been hunting for months without rest. I'm sorry, the younger Callum said. I'm so sorry, Kira. Don't apologize. My mother's voice was surprisingly gentle. You're doing what you must, what the gods command. The gods are wrong. Maybe. But they're gods, and we're just wolves playing at power. She placed a hand on her swollen belly. Promise me. Promise you'll save her. I promise. Say it. Say the words. I promise I'll keep your daughter safe. Hide her. Raise her human if that's what it takes. His voice broke. I'll make sure she never knows this world of blood and burning. Good. Kira's hand moved to her chest, to her heart. Then do it quickly, before I lose my courage. Callum raised the sword, and my mother smiled. Tell her, Kira said, that her mother loved her, that everything I did to give her a chance at peace. The sword came down. I watched it pierce her heart, watched her blood pool on the floor, watched the light fade from her eyes that looked exactly like mine, watched Callum fall to his knees beside her body and weep. Then I felt it, the thing my mother had done as she died, a pulse of power so subtle I almost missed it. Fire that didn't burn outward but inward, changing her body from the inside, slowing her heart, making her blood run cold, creating the perfect illusion of death. Callum didn't notice. He was too broken, too consumed by grief. He took me, the infant wrapped in blankets, and left my mother's corpse in that temple. And 3 minutes after he vanished into shadow, Kira's eyes opened, the vision shattered. I was back in the cell, gripping Callum's hand, tears streaming down my face. She's alive, I whispered. Judith was telling the truth. My mother is alive. Callum's face had gone white. That's impossible. I felt. You saw what she wanted you to see. I pulled my hand from his. She tricked you. Let you think you'd killed her so you'd take me and leave her alone to recover. Then where has she been for 22 years? Why didn't she come for you? I don't know. I backed toward the cell door. But I'm going to find out. Sarah, wait. Don't. I held up my hand, fire dancing across my fingers. Don't try to stop me. Don't try to manipulate me. I'm going to the Scorched Lands. I'm going to find my mother, and I'm going to learn the truth. The whole truth. Not your version, not Judith's. The truth. It's too dangerous. The Scorched Lands are... I don't care. I was at the door now. You've kept me locked up here for 45 days, training me, controlling me, telling me it's for my own safety, but maybe you were just keeping me prisoner in a prettier cage. Pain flashed across Callum's face. That's not... I would never... I don't know what you would do anymore. The words hurt to say. I don't know what's real and what's manipulation. So I'm leaving, and you're going to let me go. And if I don't... I let the fire build higher. Then we find out if a memory keeper can kill an Alpha King. We stood there, tension crackling between us, like lightning about to strike. Finally, Callum stepped aside. Go, he said quietly. Find your answers. But Sarah, when you learn the truth about the Scorched Lands, about the Unbound, about what your mother has been doing for 22 years, his violet eyes burned into mine. Come back to me. Let me explain. Let you what? Convince me to forget what I've learned? Burn away the memories that inconvenience you? Let me fight beside you, he finished, because whatever you find out there, it's going to be worse than you imagine, and you're going to need allies. I turned and walked out of the cell without answering. Behind me, I heard Judith make a sound, a wordless cry of victory or warning. I couldn't tell which. I didn't look back. Chapter 7, What the King Fears. Callum. I've feared 3 things in 1,000 years. Gods, death, and the woman sleeping in my bed who's both. Not literally in my bed. Sarah was in the guest suite 3 corridors away, but I could feel her through the fortress walls, her primal fire burning like a beacon even in sleep. Could sense when she had nightmares. Could tell when she woke, disoriented, trying to remember where she was. Memory keeper. Gods help us all. She was a memory keeper. I stood at my study window, watching dawn break over the mountains, and tried not to think about the last time I'd encountered one of her kind. Failed spectacularly. You're brooding again, Leo said from the doorway. That's never a good sign. I'm not brooding. I'm strategizing. You're standing in the dark, staring at nothing, radiating enough existential dread to make the shadows nervous. That's brooding. He crossed to the sideboard and poured 2 glasses of whiskey despite the early hour. Talk to me. I took the offered glass but didn't drink. She's a memory keeper. I know. I was there when she burned Jesse and absorbed his memories. No, you don't understand. Memory keepers aren't just dangerous because they can absorb information. They're dangerous because they can rewrite reality itself. Leo raised an eyebrow. Explain. I finally took a drink, letting the burn ground me. During the purges, there was a memory keeper named Ernest, quiet, unassuming, worked as a scribe in one of the major packs. What happened to him? He got angry. I stared into my glass. His mate was killed by zealots. So Ernest decided to take revenge, not through violence, through memory. I looked at Leo. He burned every wolf who'd participated in the killing. Didn't kill them, just rewrote them. Changed their memories so completely they forgot who they were, forgot their families, their oaths, their entire identities. Left them as empty shells. Gods. 200 wolves, I continued. 200 people who woke up one morning with no idea who they were or why they existed. Some went mad, others just stopped. Stood in place until they died of thirst. Leo's face had gone pale. How did you stop him? I didn't. He stopped himself. I finished the whiskey in one swallow. The guilt destroyed him. He'd wanted revenge, not to create a fate worse than death. So he used his power one last time, burned away his own ability to remember what he'd done. Did it work? Too well. He forgot everything: name, purpose, power. Became a wanderer who spoke in poetry and lived on scraps. I found him 20 years later, completely harmless, completely broken. I set down the glass. That's what memory keepers can do when they lose control, and Sarah has barely begun to understand her power. She's not Ernest, Leo said firmly. She's terrified of hurting people. She nearly broke when she burned Jesse by accident. Now, she's terrified now. I moved to my desk, where maps and intelligence reports covered every surface. But what happens when she learns the full truth? When she discovers what I really did during the purges? Leo stopped. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You didn't just hunt primals. You erased them. I said nothing. Couldn't. Callum. Leo's voice was deadly quiet. Tell me you didn't. The gods commanded it. The words tasted like ash. Primals were too dangerous to simply kill. Their power could resurrect them, reincarnate them, persist in their bloodlines. So the gods gave me a weapon, a way to make sure they stayed dead. I pulled open a drawer and removed a black dagger. The blade seemed to absorb light, to drink in reality itself. Soul render, I said flatly, forged by the god of twilight from the bones of dead stars. When this blade kills, it doesn't just end life, it erases existence. The person who dies never existed at all. No memories of them remain, no mark they left on the world. Complete and total annihilation. Leo stared at the blade with horror. How many? I stopped counting after 100. I returned the dagger to its drawer, unable to look at it any longer. I told myself I was being merciful. Quick death, no pain, no suffering. Better than being burned alive or torn apart by zealots. But you were committing genocide. Yes, no point denying it. I was. The gods called it purification. The council called it necessary. I called it duty, and tried not to think too hard about the screams that came before silence. I finally looked at Leo. And then I met Kira, Sarah's mother, the last primal I was supposed to kill. I returned to the window, watching the sun paint the mountains gold. She was different from the others, not fighting, not running, just waiting, pregnant, alone, resigned. What did she say to you? Nothing at first. Just looked at me with those star-bright eyes, exactly like Sarah's, and waited for me to do what I'd come to do. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass. But I couldn't. Gods help me, I couldn't kill a pregnant woman in cold blood. So you made the bargain. So I made the bargain, I agreed. Her life for her daughter's safety. She would die without resistance. I would hide the child, suppress her power, raise her human. But you didn't raise her, Leo said. You gave her to the Whiteheads because I was a coward. The admission burned. I'd killed 100 primals without hesitation, but the thought of raising Kira's daughter, of looking into those eyes every day and remembering what I'd done, I couldn't face it. I turned from the window, so I used blood magic, bound Sarah's power so deeply she'd never even know what she was, paid the Whiteheads to raise her as their own, and I walked away, told myself I'd kept my promise. You did keep your promise. You kept her safe. I crippled her! The words exploded out of me. 22 years, Leo. 22 years she thought she was broken. Defective. Worthless. Because I was too weak to face my own guilt. I sank into my desk chair, and now she's here, discovering her power, learning the truth piece by piece, and eventually she's going to ask me the question I can't answer. What question? How many, I said quietly, how many primals did I erase from existence? How many mothers, fathers, children did I wipe from reality because the gods were afraid? Leo was silent for a long moment. What will you tell her? The truth. All of it. I looked at the drawer containing Soul Render. And then I'll let her decide whether I deserve to exist or if I should be erased too. You think she'd... I think memory keepers can rewrite reality, I interrupted. If Sarah wanted to make it so I never existed, never committed those atrocities, never killed her kind, she probably could. Burn away every memory of me across the entire world, leave me as a shell who doesn't know his own name. Would that be justice or revenge? Does it matter? I stood, restless energy driving me to pace. Either way, it would be what I deserve. Callum. A pulse of power from the east wing, Sarah's fire flaring hot and sudden. Nightmare. I was shadow walking before conscious thought, appearing in her doorway in an instant. The room was chaos, furniture overturned, scorch marks on the walls, and Sarah in the center of it all, eyes glowing white-hot, fire dancing across her skin. "Sarah!" I called, not entering. Memory keepers in the grip of nightmares were deadly. "Sarah, you're safe. You're in the fortress. It's just a dream." Her eyes focused on me, recognition dawning slowly. The fire dimmed, but didn't extinguish. "I saw them," she whispered. "The purges. I absorbed the assassins' memories, and they had memories from their parents who'd survived the purges. I saw..." She broke off, trembling. "I saw wolves being erased, not killed. Erased, like they'd never existed." My blood turned to ice. "There was a blade," she continued, her voice hollow, "black as midnight, and when it struck, people just disappeared. Not just died, they were unmade, removed from reality." She looked at me with those star-bright eyes. "You know what I'm talking about, don't you? I could lie, should lie, keep the truth buried for another day, another week, another..." "Yes," I said instead. "I know." "How?" I met her gaze steadily. "Because I was the one wielding that blade." Sarah's face went white. The fire on her skin flared hotter. You're the one who erased them." "Yes." "How many?" "I don't know exactly. More than 100. Less than 200. "You don't know?" Her voice rose. "You erased people from existence, and you don't even know how many?" I stopped counting. The words came out flat, dead. After a while, they all blurred together, became numbers instead of names. Easier that way, easier to keep going when you didn't think of them as people. Sarah stood, power rolling off her in waves. "Get out!" "Sarah, get out!" Fire exploded from her hands, scorching the ceiling. "Get out before I burn you, before I erase you and every memory of what you've done." I should have left, should have given her space to process, to grieve, to rage. Instead, I stepped into the room. "Do it," I said quietly. "If that's what you need, if that's the only way to balance the scales, then do it. Burn away my memories, make me forget what I've done, or erase me entirely. Remove me from existence like I removed your kind." Sarah stared at me, fire building higher. "You want me to?" "I want you to do whatever you need to heal." I opened my arms, completely vulnerable. "If that means destroying the monster who killed your people, then destroy me. I won't fight back." "You think I won't? You think I'm too weak? Too soft? Too... I think you're the strongest person I've ever met, I interrupted. And I think you're terrified of becoming like me, of having power so great it erases your humanity. The fire flickered. Fire. That's why you won't do it, I continued. Not because you're weak, because you're better than I was, better than I am. You understand that revenge and justice aren't the same thing. Don't pretend to know what I'm thinking. I don't have to pretend. I can see it in your eyes. I took another step closer. You want to hurt me. Want to make me suffer the way you suffered, the way your people suffered. And you could, easily. But then you'd be exactly what the gods feared, a primal who erases those who threaten her. Sarah's hands shook. You deserve it. I know. You destroyed families, erased children from their parents' memories, made it so they never existed. I know. How can you just stand there and admit it? Tears streamed down her face now. How can you tell me you're a monster and expect me to what? Forgive you? Accept it? I don't expect anything. I was close enough now to feel her heat, to see the war raging behind her eyes. I'm just done lying. To you, to myself, to everyone. You deserve the truth. All of it. Even if it makes you hate me. I should hate you. Yes. I should burn you alive and scatter the ashes. Yes. So why don't I? Her voice broke. Why can't I just... Why do I still... She collapsed forward. I caught her, and she didn't pull away, just pressed her face against my chest and sobbed. Because you're not me, I said softly, holding her carefully. You haven't let the horror make you hollow. You still feel, still care, still hope there's a better way. I hate that I care about you, she said against my shirt. I hate that even knowing what you've done, I still... She didn't finish. Didn't need to. I know, I said. I hate it too. Would be easier if you could just erase me and move on. We stood there, broken pieces clinging to each other in a room full of scorch marks and grief. Tell me the rest, Sarah said finally. Tell me everything. No more half-truths. So I did. I told her about the gods' commands, about the soul render blade and how it worked. About the first primal I'd erased, a teenager named Paul who'd begged for his life. About the families I'd destroyed, the bloodlines I'd ended, the history I'd rewritten. I told her about the nightmares that still plagued me, the faces I couldn't forget, even though the world had forgotten them. The way I sometimes woke up not knowing if I was real or if I'd been erased too. And I told her about the moment I'd decided to stop, the day I'd met her mother and realized I couldn't do it anymore, couldn't keep erasing people and calling it duty. That's why I hid you, I said, why I suppressed your power, not just to keep you safe from others, but to keep others safe from you. Because if you became what the gods feared, if you started erasing people who threatened you, I'd have failed. Failed your mother, failed you, failed to break the cycle. Sarah pulled back to look at me. And now that I know what I can do? Now I trust you to choose, differently than I did. I cupped her face gently. You asked me earlier why I care so much, why I'm trying so hard to protect you. And? Because you're my chance at redemption, I said simply. Every primal I erased, I can't bring back. Every life I destroyed, I can't restore. But you? I can help you become everything they could have been, everything I prevented them from becoming. That's a lot of pressure. I know. I'm sorry. I let my hands drop. You shouldn't have to carry my guilt. Shouldn't have to be my second chance. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she placed her hand over my heart. Show me, she said. Show you what? Everything. All of it. Every memory. Every death. Every moment of doubt. If I'm going to decide whether you deserve to exist, I need to see it all. The monster and the man. The killer and the protector. Sarah, that will destroy you. Absorbing that much, I'm a memory keeper. Her eyes burned with determination. If I'm going to be what the gods feared, I might as well start by knowing exactly what I'm inheriting, what my power can do, what it cost the last time someone like me existed. You'll lose yourself, I warned. That many memories, that much darkness. Then you'll remind me who I am. That's what you promised, right? That if I forget, you'll tell me. I looked at this incredible, terrifying woman and felt something I hadn't felt in centuries. Pride. All right, I said, but not here, not now. When you're stronger, when you've learned better control, then I'll show you everything. Promise? I promise. I pulled her close again. And I keep my promises. Eventually. She laughed despite everything. A broken sound, but genuine. Callum? She said against my chest. Yes? I can't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I know. But I'm going to try. To understand at least. To see you as more than just a monster. That's more than I deserve. Probably. She pulled back and met my eyes. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Because if I let hate consume me, if I become the thing that only destroys and never builds, then the gods win. They'll have created exactly what they feared. She touched my face, fire dancing across her fingertips but not burning. So, I'm going to choose differently. Choose to be better. And you're going to help me. Not because you deserve redemption, but because I deserve to become more than the sum of their fears. I turned my face into her palm. What do you need from me? The truth, always, no matter how much it hurts. You have it. And space, when I need to process, to grieve, to rage, you let me. Done. And one more thing. Anything. She pulled me down and kissed me. Fierce, desperate, complicated. A kiss that tasted like forgiveness and fury, like hope and horror, like every impossible contradiction she embodied. When we broke apart, we were both shaking. That, she said breathlessly. We acknowledge that this thing between us exists. We stop pretending it's just duty or guilt or convenience. We name it. And what do we name it? I don't know yet. She smiled, sad and small. But we'll figure it out, together. I pulled her close again, and we stood in the wreckage of her room, two broken souls, trying to build something from the ashes. Outside the window, dawn had fully broken. A new day, a new chance. Maybe I didn't deserve redemption, but Sarah deserved to be more than a weapon, more than a fear. And if helping her become that cost me everything, it would be the first thing I'd erased that I wouldn't regret. Chapter 8. The real enemy appears. Day 50. Sarah. The advisor had been with Callum for 900 years. That was the first red flag we missed. His name was Garrett Montgomery, and he was so perfectly unremarkable that your eyes slid past him in any room. Average height, average build, forgettable features. The kind of person who could stand in a corner during a council meeting and everyone would forget he was there, which, I realized too late, was exactly the point. I was in the library researching primal history when I found it. A journal entry from 300 years ago, written by one of Callum's former advisors, a woman named Priscilla who'd served for decades before dying of old age. The new advisor troubles me. Garrett Montgomery appeared one day claiming to be from the Eastern Territories, bearing credentials that checked perfectly, too perfectly. But when I try to remember our first meeting, the memory slides away like water. And yesterday I could have sworn I saw him whispering to shadows that whispered back. The entry ended there. The next page had been torn out. I kept reading. Found another mention 50 pages later. I confronted Garrett about the discrepancies in his story. He smiled and touched my hand. Now I can't remember why I was concerned. Everything seems fine. He's always been here, hasn't he? My blood ran cold. I flipped through the rest of the journal frantically. No more mentions of Garrett, just entries about daily council business, supply reports, mundane details, until the final entry, dated the day before Priscilla died. If anyone finds this, don't trust Garrett Montgomery. He's not what he seems. He's not even... The rest was scratched out, violently, as if someone had taken a blade to the page. I was still staring at the ruined words when I felt it, a presence in the doorway. I looked up slowly. Garrett stood there, holding a tea tray, that mild, forgettable smile on his face. "Lady Sarah," he said pleasantly, "I thought you might like some refreshment. You've been in here for hours. Every instinct I possessed screamed danger. "How long have you been standing there?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Just arrived. Why?" He stepped into the room, setting the tray on a side table. "Is everything all right?" "Fine." I closed the journal carefully. Actually, I was just reading about the king's former advisors. Fascinating history. "Oh?" Something flickered in his eyes. "Find anything interesting?" "Just wondering how you've managed to serve so long. 900 years is remarkable." "Good genetics." That bland smile never wavered. "And knowing when to stay out of the way." He poured tea with practiced ease. "The king speaks highly of you, says you're learning control remarkably fast for a newly awakened primal. He's a good teacher. He is. Very patient. Very thorough." Garrett offered me the cup. "Very trusting of those close to him." I didn't take the tea. "What do you want, Garrett?" "Want?" "I'm simply... You've been watching me since I arrived. Every time I turn around, there you are. Helpful, unobtrusive, perfectly positioned to overhear everything." I stood, fire kindling in my chest. "So I'll ask again, what do you want?" The smile finally faded. "You're more perceptive than the others." "What others?" "The previous... complications." He set down the teacup with deliberate care. "The other primals who tried to get close to Callum over the centuries, the ones who thought they could change him, redeem him, make him see the error of his genocidal ways." Ice slid down my spine. "How many?" 17. He said it like discussing the weather. 17 primals who survived the purges and tried to exact revenge or justice or whatever they called it. All ended up the same way. Erased. Unmade. Removed from existence. Callum wouldn't he? Garrett tilted his head. "You've seen his memories, haven't you? Seen what he did during the purges, and you still think he's capable of mercy?" "I think he's changed. People don't change. They just get better at hiding what they are." He moved closer, and I realized his eyes were wrong. Too dark, too deep, like looking into an abyss. "But you're different from the others. You're a memory keeper. You could actually hurt him, could burn away his carefully constructed lies and show the world what he really is." "Who are you?" I demanded. "What are you?" "I'm the shadow that's followed Callum since he made his bargain with the god of twilight, the price he didn't know he was paying." His form flickered, and for just a moment I saw something else beneath the human disguise, something vast and hungry. "I'm the entity that feeds on the memories of those he erases. Every primal he destroyed, every life he unmade. I consumed their final moments, their terror, their grief, their desperate hope that someone would remember them." Horror washed over me. "You've been using him." "I've been sustaining myself," Garrett corrected. "And he's been an excellent provider. 100 primals erased? That's a feast that's kept me strong for centuries." "But the purges ended 800 years ago." "The official purges, yes, but there have been unofficial ones." That terrible smile returned. "Every primal who survived and tried to seek justice, everyone who got too close to the truth. Callum erased them thinking he was protecting himself, protecting the fragile peace, never realizing he was feeding me, making me stronger." My fire flared hotter. "He doesn't know about you. He knows there's a cost to using soul render, knows something takes the erased memories, but he's never asked what, never wanted to know." Garrett's eyes gleamed. "Easier to pretend the blade simply deletes people. Easier than facing the truth that every soul he's destroyed has been devoured by something that shouldn't exist." "What are you?" "I'm what happens when gods play with forces they don't understand, when they forge weapons from dead stars and broken promises. I'm the hunger that lives in the spaces between existence." He spread his hands. "And I'm very, very hungry, Sarah." "Stay back." I let flame dance across my fingers. "Oh, I don't want to hurt you. Not yet." He circled me slowly. "You're far more valuable alive, because here's what's going to happen. You're going to keep growing stronger, keep absorbing memories, keep becoming more and more powerful until even Callum fears you. And then? And then he'll try to erase you, just like all the others. He'll convince himself it's necessary, that you've become too dangerous, that the world is safer without you. Garrett's smile was pure malice. And when he drives soul render through your heart, when he unmakes you from reality, I'll be there to feast on your final moments, to consume every memory you've ever absorbed, every life you've touched, everything you could have become. I won't let that happen. You won't have a choice. The pattern is inevitable. Primal becomes powerful. Primal threatens Callum's authority. Callum erases Primal. He stopped in front of me. You're just the latest iteration, but also the most delicious, because you love him, and he loves you, which will make the betrayal so much sweeter when it comes. Callum wouldn't he? Ask yourself, why did he really suppress your power as an infant to protect you, or to make sure you never became strong enough to threaten him? To protect me. From whom? The other primals were dead. The gods had retreated. The only threat to you was Callum himself. Garrett leaned closer. He suppressed you because he was terrified of what you'd become. And now that you're awakening, now that you're learning the truth, it's only a matter of time before that fear turns to action. I wanted to deny it, wanted to burn this creature to ash for planting doubt. But a small, treacherous part of my mind whispered, "What if he's right, Callum?" I found them in the library. Sarah stood in a circle of fire, eyes blazing white-hot. And Garrett, my advisor, my confidant of 9 centuries, stood just outside the flames, smiling like he'd won something. "What's going on?" I demanded, shadow walking between them. "Ask him," Sarah said, her voice shaking with rage. "Ask your loyal advisor what he really is." I looked at Garrett. Really looked, for the first time in centuries, and saw the cracks in his disguise, the way shadows clung to him wrong, the darkness in his eyes that had nothing to do with pupil dilation. "Garrett," my hand moved to where Soul Render hung at my belt. "Explain." "Nothing to explain, my king." That mild voice, so familiar. Simply having a chat with our guest about the nature of power and consequence. "He's been feeding on the primals you erased," Sarah said. "Every Soul Render destroyed, he consumed. He's not your advisor. He's a parasite that's been using you for 800 years. The words hit like physical blows. "Is this true?" I asked quietly. Garrett's smile widened. "Does it matter? They were going to cease existing anyway. I simply ensured their end served a purpose." "What purpose?" "My survival, my growth. My evolution into something greater than the pathetic entity that crawled from the wreckage of divine warfare." He shed the human disguise like a coat. What stood before us was nightmarish, vaguely humanoid but composed entirely of shadow and hunger, eyes that were doorways to nothing, a mouth that opened too wide, showing teeth made of crystallized screams. "I am what feeds in the spaces between existence," it said in a voice like breaking glass. "What consumes the forgotten and the erased, and I have grown fat on the souls you fed me, Callum, so wonderfully, beautifully fat. Horror and rage warred in my chest. You used me. I sustained you," it corrected. "Every time you wielded Soul Render, every time you erased a primal, you felt the weight lift slightly, felt the guilt ease. That was me, consuming not just their existence, but your memory of destroying them, making it easier for you to keep going." It was right. Gods, it was right. I could barely remember the faces of those I'd erased, barely felt the weight of their deaths, because this thing had been feeding on my guilt, along with their souls. "How do we kill it?" Sarah asked, fire building higher. "You don't," the entity said. "I'm bound to Soul Render. As long as the blade exists, I exist. And Callum can't destroy Soul Render without destroying himself. The gods' bargain was very specific." "Then we'll find another way," I said, drawing the black blade. The entity laughed. "Will you? You've tried everything over the centuries, tried to break the blade, hide it, seal it away. But you always come back to it, because deep down, you know you might need it again, might need to erase another threat, another complication." Its eyes fixed on Sarah. "Another primal who's become too dangerous." "I would never—" "You've thought about it already," the entity interrupted. "Late at night, watching her power grow, wondering if she'll eventually lose control, if you'll have to make the same choice you made with all the others, preservation over love, safety over hope. That's not true, isn't it? The entity glided closer. Why else keep soul render? Why else maintain the bargain with the god of twilight? You say it's in case of emergencies, but the real reason is simpler. You're terrified. Terrified that one day someone will threaten everything you've built. And when that day comes, you'll reach for the blade, just like always. I looked at Sarah, saw the doubt in her eyes. I won't use it on you, I said desperately. Never on you. You said the same to the others, the entity purred. Right before you drove the blade home. What others? Sarah demanded. Shall I tell her, Callum? About the 17 primals who survived the purges? Who came to you seeking justice, redemption, understanding? Who you grew close to, cared for, maybe even loved? The entity's grin widened impossibly. Who you erased the moment they became inconvenient. That's not... They were... I couldn't finish. Couldn't find the words. Because it was true. Not all of it. I hadn't loved the others, hadn't cared for them the way I cared for Sarah. But I had erased them, had convinced myself each time it was necessary, unavoidable, the only choice. Sarah, I said, sheathing soul render, I swear to you this is different. You're different. I would never... Don't. Her voice was cold. Don't make promises you can't keep. She turned her fire on the entity. And you fed on their deaths, their fear, their final moments. You're as much a monster as he is. Oh, I never claimed otherwise, but at least I'm honest about what I am. It spread its shadow arms wide. You, however, are still lying to yourself, still pretending you're better than Callum. But you're not. You're a memory keeper. You could erase people just as easily as soul render, maybe easier. I would never, not yet. But give it time, give it trauma, give it the right circumstances. The entity laughed. Everyone breaks eventually. Everyone becomes what they fear most. It's only a matter of time. Sarah's fire exploded outward, slamming into the entity with enough force to crack the library's stone walls. The entity screamed, a sound that made reality itself shudder, but didn't fall, didn't even seem particularly harmed. You can't kill me with fire, it said, reforming. I'm not alive. I'm a concept given shape, a hunger given form. The only way to destroy me is to destroy soul render, and we both know Callum won't do that. It was right. God's help me, it was right. The blade was insurance, protection, the nuclear option I kept hoping I'd never need. But as long as it existed, this thing would exist too, feeding, growing, waiting. Callum, Sarah said quietly, destroy the blade. I can't. Can't or won't. Both. I looked at her, desperate for understanding. The bargain I made with the god of twilight, it's tied to my life. If I destroy soul render, I break the bargain. And when you break bargains with gods, you die, the entity finished helpfully. Rather spectacularly. The god of twilight doesn't appreciate broken agreements. Sarah's expression hardened. So, you're choosing the blade over me. I'm choosing life over death. You're choosing fear over trust. She backed toward the door, fire still crackling around her. You could end this creature, end the cycle of erasure and consumption. But you won't, because you're too afraid of the cost. Sarah, please. I'm leaving. She reached the doorway. I'm going to the scorched lands. I'm going to find my mother, and I'm going to learn how to destroy things like him. She pointed at the entity. And protect myself from things like you. You can't survive the scorched lands alone. The journey is... Then I'll die trying. Better than staying here waiting for the day you decide I'm too dangerous to live. She met my eyes one last time. Goodbye, Callum. I hope your blade keeps you warm at night. She vanished in a burst of flame. I moved to follow, but the entity blocked my path. Let her go, it said. She'll either die in the scorched lands, which would be delicious, or she'll return stronger than ever, which would be even better. Either way, I win. I looked at this creature I'd been feeding for centuries without knowing. This parasite that had shaped my choices, eased my guilt, made genocide palatable. I'm going to find a way to destroy you, I said quietly. I'm sure you'll try. It began to fade back into shadow. But we both know how this ends. You'll keep Soul Render. You'll keep me. And when Sarah eventually becomes what you fear most, you'll use the blade. You'll erase her. And I'll feast on her final moments while you convince yourself it was necessary. It disappeared, completely, leaving me alone in the ruined library. Leo burst in moments later. What happened? The entire fortress felt that power surge. She's gone, I said numbly. Sarah's gone, and My voice broke. I let her leave. Then we go after her. No. I sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. She's right to run. I am what she fears. A monster with a blade that erases existence and a parasite that feeds on death. You're also the man who's been trying to protect her. Am I? Or am I just delaying the inevitable? I looked at Leo. How many, Leo? How many primals have I erased over the centuries? Callum? How many? His silence was answer enough. I pulled Soul Render from its sheath. The blade gleamed in the dim light, beautiful and terrible. I could destroy it, I whispered. Break the bargain, kill myself in the process, end the cycle. And leave Sarah to face the scorched lands alone? To deal with whatever her mother has been building without any allies? Leo shook his head. Yeah, that's not protection, that's abandonment. He was right. Damn him, he was right. I resheathed the blade. Then we prepare for war. Because when Sarah comes back, if she comes back, she won't be alone. She'll have her mother, the Unbound, an army of primals who've been waiting 800 years for revenge. And you think she'll come back? I thought about the doubt in her eyes, the betrayal, the fear. She'll come back, I said quietly. Not for me, but to stop the entity, to break the cycle, to prove she's better than I am. And when she does, I looked at Soul Render one last time. Then I choose, the blade or her, safety or trust, the monster I've been or the man I'm trying to become. Which will you choose? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. Chapter 9. The Burning. Sarah. The scorched lands earned their name. I stood at the edge of the vast wasteland that had once been the heartland of primal civilization, and the devastation took my breath away. Miles of blackened earth, twisted metal sculptures that had once been buildings, glass fused into grotesque shapes by heat so intense it had melted reality itself. This was where the gods had made their final stand against the primals, where divine fire had rained from the sky for 7 days and nights, where an entire civilization had been cremated. And somewhere in this graveyard, my mother waited. The crystal pendant Judith had given me pulsed warm against my chest, pulling me north, toward the ruins of what my borrowed memories, absorbed from the assassins, told me was the first temple. I'd been walking for 2 days, 2 days of barren landscape and silence so complete it felt like the world had ended. No birds, no insects, no wind, just endless scorched earth and the weight of genocide pressing down on every step. I should have been exhausted, should have collapsed from dehydration, exposure, the sheer emotional toll of everything that had happened. But primal fire sustained me, burned in my chest like a second heart, feeding me energy drawn from the devastation around me. The more destruction, the more power I could absorb. It was intoxicating and horrifying in equal measure. You could erase people just as easily as Soul Render, the entity's words echoed in my mind. Maybe easier. I pushed the thought away and kept walking. The first temple appeared at sunset, a massive structure that had somehow survived the divine bombardment. Black stone etched with symbols that predated written language, towers that reached toward the sky like accusing fingers, and at its base, a camp. Dozens of shelters, hundreds of primals moving between them with purpose, an army preparing for war. I'd found the Unbound. A figure emerged from the largest tent as I approached. Female, tall, with silver white hair that cascaded past her shoulders. Eyes that glowed with the same starfire as mine. She looked exactly like an older version of my reflection. Sarah, my mother said. Not a question, a statement of fact. I've been waiting for you. Kira Ashford was nothing like I'd imagined. I'd expected rage, bitterness, the cold determination of someone who'd spent 22 years plotting revenge against the man who'd tried to kill her. Instead, she greeted me with warmth, with open arms and tears streaming down her face, with a joy so pure it made my chest ache. "My daughter," she whispered, holding me tight. "My beautiful, powerful daughter, you found your way home." I stood rigid in her embrace, overwhelmed. "You're alive. You're really alive." "Thanks to you." She pulled back to look at me, hands on my shoulders. "The moment Callum left with you that night, I used every ounce of power I had left to heal. It nearly killed me, but I survived. Because I had to. Because I knew one day you'd need me. Why didn't you come for me? Why leave me with the Whiteheads for 22 years? Pain flashed across her face. Because Callum was watching, waiting for any sign I'd survived. If I'd tried to contact you, to retrieve you, he would have found me. Found you. Killed us both properly this time. She led me into the tent, a command center filled with maps, supply lists, weapons. So I came here, to the only place the gods feared to tread after their victory, gathered the survivors, the primals who'd hidden, who'd escaped, who refused to be extinguished. How many? 347. She gestured out the tent flap at the camp. The last of our kind. And now, with you here, we finally have the power we need. Something in her tone made me wary. Power for what? To finish what the gods started. Her eyes hardened. To burn away the corrupt hierarchy that replaced us. To show the world what real power looks like. You want war. I want justice. She moved to a map spread across a central table. For 800 years we've hidden, survived, watched the world the gods created spiral into tyranny and oppression, watched alphas dominate betas, betas dominate omegas, everyone bowing to kings who rule through fear. She looked at me. You know what that's like. You lived it. 22 years of being treated as worthless because some arbitrary hierarchy deemed you weak. That was the suppression. That was the system. Her voice sharpened. The suppression just made it easier for them to justify. But even without it, the hierarchy would have crushed you, just like it crushes everyone who doesn't fit the narrow definition of strong. I couldn't argue. She was right. So what do you want me to do? I asked. Help us tear it down. Kira's hand moved across the map, indicating cities, territories, strongholds. We start with the temples, burn them, every single one. Remove the religious justification for the hierarchy. That's not justice. That's revenge. It's both. She met my eyes. The temples executed you, Sarah, threw you into fire because you existed. Don't you want them to pay for that? I want them to change, not burn. Change doesn't come from asking nicely. It comes from fire and blood and fear. Her hand gripped mine. You're a memory keeper. You can burn away their certainty, their faith, their conviction that the hierarchy is divinely ordained. You can remake them. The word sent ice through my veins. You want me to rewrite people's minds. I want you to free them from the lies they've been fed since birth. She squeezed my hand. Imagine it. Every alpha who's brutalized those weaker than them, suddenly forgetting why they thought they had that right. Every priest who's justified genocide in the gods' names, suddenly unable to remember their scripture. That's not freedom, that's control. It's liberation through fire. Kira's eyes blazed. And you're the only one who can do it. The only memory keeper born in 8 centuries. The weapon the gods feared most. I pulled my hand from hers. I'm not a weapon. Yes, you are. Not cruel, just matter of fact. That's what we all are. Weapons forged in divine fire, shaped by genocide, tempered by survival. And now it's time to use that power. No. Kira's expression didn't change. You came all this way, walked through the scorched lands, found your people. You must have known what we were building here. I came to find the truth about you, about what happened, I stopped. About whether Callum was the monster I feared, or the man I hoped. About him, Kira finished. About whether the Alpha King who murdered me, who he thinks murdered me, deserves your loyalty. He's trying to change. Is he? Or is he just better at manipulation than I was at playing dead? She circled me slowly. Tell me, Sarah, how many times has he almost used soul render on you? How many times how you caught him looking at you and wondering if you're becoming too dangerous? Never. Liar. She stopped in front of me. I can see it in your eyes. The doubt, the fear. You ran from him, didn't you? Came here because you're terrified he'll erase you like all the others. My silence was answer enough. I thought so. Kira's voice softened. I don't blame you. He's very good at making you believe he cares, at making you think you're different, special, the one exception to his 800-year pattern of murder. He does care. He cares about control. She moved to a wooden chest and pulled out a black blade. Not soul render, but similar. Wrong. Do you know what this is? I shook my head. Soul fragment. The prototype. The blade the god of twilight made before perfecting soul render. She held it up to the light. It doesn't erase completely, just fractures. Splits the soul into pieces. The person survives, but they're never whole again. Horror crawled up my spine. Where did you get that? From one of Callum's victims. A primal named Timothy, who survived the initial strike but had his soul shattered. He lived for 300 years as a broken shell before finally fading. Her eyes hardened. He gave me this before he died. Made me promise I'd use it on Callum. Make him feel what it's like to be destroyed, but not destroyed. Present, but not present. Alive, but not living. You can't. Can't I? He murdered my mate, stole my daughter, fed hundreds of my people to a parasitic entity. She set down the blade. I think fragmenting his soul is getting off easy. This isn't you. I moved closer, desperate. Judith said you begged Callum to save me, that you made a bargain. That sounds like someone who valued life, not destruction. That was before. Kira's voice went cold. Before 22 years of watching my daughter grow up thinking she was broken. Before learning he'd been feeding an entity on our people's souls. Before discovering he kept soul render as insurance against the day you became too powerful. She gripped my shoulders. I loved you enough to die for you once. Now, I love you enough to kill for you, to burn the world that hurt you, to make sure no other primal child grows up thinking they're cursed. By becoming the thing they feared? By proving the hierarchy right about us being dangerous? By showing them what dangerous really looks like? She pulled me into an embrace. Join me, Sarah. Help me tear down the temples, rewrite the hierarchy, create a world where power isn't about domination, but liberation. I stood in my mother's arms, feeling her warmth, her conviction, her rage, and I understood. She'd broken. 22 years of grief and isolation had twisted her love into something unrecognizable. She didn't want justice. She wanted scorched earth. Just like the entity had predicted I would become. I can't, I whispered against her shoulder. Kira went still. What? I can't help you burn the world. Pulled back. I won't become a weapon, won't rewrite people's minds, won't prove that everything they feared about Memory Keepers was right. Even if it means saving our people? Especially then, I met her eyes. Because if I do what you're asking, there won't be any our people left. Just shells wearing primal faces, no better than what the gods created. Anger flashed across her features. You sound like him. Maybe, I stepped back. Or maybe I sound like myself, like someone who's choosing to be more than her trauma, more than her power, more than her fear. You're choosing him over me. I'm choosing differently than both of you. The fire in my chest built higher, hotter. Callum made the wrong choice 800 years ago. Let fear turn him into a weapon, and you're making the same mistake now. So what? You're going to go back to him? Let him erase you when he decides you're too dangerous? No. The answer came with absolute certainty. I'm going back to stop the identity, to break the cycle, to prove that Memory Keepers can build instead of burn. You'll fail. Maybe, but at least I'll fail trying to be better instead of succeeding at being worse. Kira's expression hardened. If you walk away now, you're not welcome back. You're choosing their world over ours. I'm choosing a third option, one where primals and hierarchy wolves find a way to coexist without genocide. I move toward the tent exit, and I hope someday you'll understand that. Sarah, I left before she could finish, but I'd only made it 50 feet from the tent when the attack came. Primals emerged from everywhere, 30, 40, 50 of them, surrounding me in a circle of power that made the air shimmer. Kira stood at the tent entrance, soul fragment in her hand. I'm sorry, daughter, but I can't let you go back to him. Can't let you warn him about what's coming. What are you doing? What I should have done the night Callum came for us. She raised the blade. I'm protecting you. From him. From yourself. From the choices that will destroy you. By fragmenting my soul? By keeping you here until the war is over. Until the temples burn and the hierarchy falls and the world is remade. She stepped closer. You'll understand eventually, when you see what we build from the ashes. This is kidnapping. This is love. Kira's eyes shone with tears and madness, and I'm done letting anyone take you from me. Not Callum, not the gods, not even you. She lunged. I didn't think, didn't plan, just burned. Fire exploded from my body in a sphere of white plasma that sent every primal flying backward. Kira stumbled, soul fragment falling from her hand, and I ran, straight toward the scorched land's heart, where the devastation was deepest, where reality itself had been burned thin. Behind me, I heard Kira scream orders, heard primals give chase, but I was faster, fueled by desperation and heartbreak and the terrible understanding that my mother was as lost as Callum had been. I ran until I reached it. The scar, the place where the god's final weapon had struck, a crater a mile wide where even the laws of physics broke down, and I jumped, fell into that impossible darkness, into the space where existence frayed. The last thing I heard was Kira's anguished cry, "No, not like this, not alone!" Then there was only the fire, my fire, burning hotter than it ever had before, hot enough that I felt my memories beginning to burn away, felt myself fragmenting, forgetting, becoming something other. Callum, I thought desperately. I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I... The thought dissolved into flame, and Sarah Ashford began to forget who she was. Callum. I felt her die. Not die. Unmake, fragment, burn so hot that the bond we'd formed through blood and proximity and something deeper shattered like glass. "No," I whispered. Then louder, "No!" I was shadow walking before Leo could stop me, racing through darkness, toward the scorched lands, toward the place where I could still feel the faintest ember of her existence. The scar was easy to find. Every God-touched being could feel it, a wound in reality that never healed. I dove in without hesitation. The darkness was absolute, suffocating. This was the space between existence, where erased souls went to dissolve. And in the center of it, burning like a dying star, was Sarah. She hung suspended in nothing, fire consuming her from the inside out. Her eyes were blank, lost. She didn't recognize me when I materialized beside her. "Who are you?" she whispered. The words were wrong, fractured, like she'd forgotten language itself. "I'm Callum." I reached for her carefully. "And you're Sarah. You're alive. You're here. I don't remember." Tears streamed down her face, evaporating in her heat. "I don't remember anything. Not my name, not my face, not why I'm burning." She was forgetting. The fire was consuming her memories as fuel. If I didn't stop it, there would be nothing left. "Sarah, look at me." I cupped her face. "You're a memory keeper, daughter of Kira Ashford. You survived a fire pit execution. You're the strongest person I've ever met. That's what you said before." Her eyes focused slightly. "In the fortress, when I forgot my name. Yes. Will you keep telling me? Even when I forget again?" "Every day for the rest of our lives," she smiled through her tears. "That's a long time." "I have a long time." I pulled her close, letting my shadows wrap around her fire. "Now let me help you. Let me pull you back from the edge." "I'm burning too hot." Her voice was fading. "If you touch me, I'll burn you too. burn away your memories, make you forget everything you are. I don't care. You should. Her hands pushed weakly against my chest. I could erase you completely, make you nothing. Then I'll trust you not to. I held her tighter, just like I'm trusting you to come back to me, to remember who you are and choose to keep being her. What if I can't? Then I'll remind you every single day, until you remember or until we both burn away, whichever comes first. I pressed my forehead to hers. Now burn, Sarah. Burn as hot as you need to. I'm not afraid of your fire anymore. She looked at me with those star-bright eyes and chose. The fire exploded outward, consuming everything. My memories, my identity, my carefully constructed lies. And I let it. Let her burn through 800 years of guilt and genocide and fear. Let her see everything I'd hidden. Every soul I'd erased, every choice I regretted, every moment I'd been the monster instead of the man. When the fire finally died, we were both on our knees in the darkness, both stripped raw, both remade. I remember now, Sarah whispered. Everything. Who I am, who you are, what we've both done. And she took my hand, and we go back, together. We stop the entity. We stop my mother. We break the cycle. Even knowing what I am, especially knowing what you are. She pulled me to my feet. Because you chose to burn with me instead of running, that means something. We climbed out of the scar together, emerged into the scorched lands as the sun rose, and began the long walk back to face our demons. Chapter 10. Coronation. Day 60. Sarah. We arrived back at the fortress at dawn. The entire compound was in chaos. Leo had mobilized every warrior. Scouts reported primal forces gathering at the scorched land's border. My mother was coming, and she was bringing war. But before war, there was this, the coronation. I stood in my chambers, the 14-pound gown feeling lighter now. Or maybe I was just stronger. Hard to tell after burning away half my memories and rebuilding myself from ash. Leo had explained it during our journey back. Callum had refused to cancel the ceremony, had insisted that if the world was ending, it would end with me crowned. With the hierarchy seeing a primal claim power not through conquest, but through choice. You don't have to do this, Callum said from the doorway. He'd been saying it every hour since we'd left the scorched lands. We can fight your mother's army without the politics. No. I turned from the mirror. This is exactly when we do this. When the old world is burning, we show them what the new one looks like. He crossed the room, magnificent in his ceremonial armor. You know they'll oppose you. The old families, the temple remnants, the traditionalists. Good, I smiled. Let them object. Let them challenge. Let them see what happens when a memory keeper chooses mercy over erasure. And if your mother attacks during the ceremony, then we deal with it. I touched the crystal pendant at my throat, the one Judith had given me. It pulsed warm, but differently now, not pulling me toward my mother, pulling me toward something else, truth. Callum, I said quietly, there's something I need to do before the coronation. What? I need to see the entity, face it, understand what it really is. His expression darkened. That's suicide. It feeds on confrontation, on fear, on memories. I met his eyes. And I'm a memory keeper, which means maybe, just maybe, I can do something you couldn't. What? Burn it away. The entity waited in the throne room, not hiding anymore, not pretending to be Garrett, just existing as its true self, a mass of shadow and hunger that made reality shudder around it. The prodigal daughter returns, it said in that glass-breaking voice, and just in time for the main event. How delicious. We need to talk, I said, walking forward alone. Callum had wanted to come, but I'd made him wait outside. This was something I had to do myself. Talk? How civilized. Usually people just try to burn me or erase me or... It stopped, studying me. Oh, you're not here to fight. No. You're here to understand. It laughed, delighted. How wonderfully naive. What makes you think I want to be understood? Because you keep talking instead of killing me. I stopped 10 feet away, because you could have devoured me a dozen times by now, but you haven't, because you're lonely. The entity went very still. You weren't always like this, I continued. You were something else before, something the gods created or destroyed or warped, and you've been stuck between existence and non-existence for so long, you've forgotten what you were. Clever girl, too clever. It circled me. Yes, I was something once, before the gods made their weapons, before Soul Render. I was a memory keeper, actually, the first one, the one they tested their erasure magic on. My breath caught. You're primal? Was primal. Now I'm what happens when you erase a memory keeper improperly, when you try to unmake something designed to hold memories. Its form flickered. They couldn't destroy me completely, so I became a paradox, a being that exists by consuming the memories of the erased, a hunger that feeds on absence. Gods. Understanding crashed over me. You don't want to exist like this. No, it admitted, but I can't die, can't be killed, can't be erased because I'm already erased. I'm the mistake that keeps propagating, the error that becomes eternal. It stopped in front of me. And you think you can fix me? I think I can give you a choice. I raised my hands, fire kindling. I can burn away what you've become and see if anything of what you were remains, or I can leave you as you are. But either way, you stop feeding on erased souls. You stop manipulating Callum. You stop the cycle. And if I refuse, then I burn you anyway and hope it's enough. The entity studied me for a long moment. You know, if you do this, if you try to burn through centuries of accumulated hunger and pain and stolen memories, it might destroy you too. Might burn away so much of yourself that there's nothing left. I know. And you'd still try? Yes. Why? Because I choose to. I let the fire build higher. Because I'm tired of being afraid of what I might become. Because someone has to break the cycle, and it might as well be me. The entity laughed, but it sounded almost sad. You really are your mother's daughter. Same terrible certainty, same willingness to burn for what you believe in. Will you let me try? It was silent. Then, if you do this, if you succeed, there's a chance I'll remember who I was. Before the erasure, before I became this thing. I know. That person might not be better, might be worse. That's their choice to make, not yours, not this hunger wearing their shape. The entity spread its shadow arms wide. Then burn, Memory Keeper. Let's see if you can unmake the unmade. I didn't hesitate. Fire poured from my hands, from my chest, from every cell of my body. White-hot plasma that consumed the entity's form, that burned through centuries of accumulated darkness. And I felt it. Every memory it had consumed. Every soul it had devoured. Hundreds of primals, their final moments compressed into one endless scream of dissolution. I burned through it all, sorted, separated, honored each death before letting it go. And underneath it all, I found him. Not Garrett, not the entity, but Ernest, the memory keeper from Callum's story. The one who'd erased 200 wolves in revenge, then erased himself in guilt. Except he hadn't erased himself completely, just fragmented, scattered, became the hunger that fed on his own kind. Ernest, I said, holding his fractured soul together with will and fire, you don't have to be this anymore. I killed them, he whispered through my flames. 200 people, removed them from existence. How do I come back from that? You don't. You come through it. I began to knit his soul back together, piece by agonizing piece. You face what you did. You carry it. And you choose to be better than the worst thing you've ever done. I don't deserve. None of us do. But we choose anyway. The fire built higher. So hot I felt my own memories beginning to burn. Felt myself fragmenting like Ernest had, spreading too thin, becoming... Hands gripped my shoulders. Callum, having burst through the door despite my orders to stay outside. "Sarah!" he shouted. "You're burning too hot. You're going to erase yourself." I know. I didn't stop, couldn't stop. I was so close. Ernest's soul was almost whole. But if I don't finish, he'll fracture again, become the entity again. It'll all be for nothing. Then let me help. Callum's shadows poured into me, cooling the fire just enough. You hold him together. I'll hold you together. We do this as a team. Together, we burned. Callum's shadows wrapped around my fire, creating a cocoon where Ernest's soul could reform without consuming mine, where I could give instead of taking, build instead of burning. And slowly, gradually, the entity dissolved. In its place stood a man, small, unassuming, with haunted eyes that had seen too much. "I'm sorry," Ernest whispered, "for everything. For what I became. For what I fed on. For—" "I know," I said gently. "Now you get to choose what comes next." He looked at Callum, recognition flickering. You tried to erase me all those years ago." "I did." Callum didn't flinch. "It was meant to be merciful. Quick. I didn't know it would fracture you instead." "Neither did the gods." Ernest laughed bitterly. "Ironic, isn't it? They tried to erase memory keepers because we could rewrite reality, but erasing us just made us worse." He looked at me. "You could have left me as I was, let me dissolve completely. Why didn't you?" "Because everyone deserves a chance to be more than their trauma." I stepped back, releasing him. "What you do with this chance is up to you." Ernest studied his hands. Solid. Real. No longer made of hunger and shadow. "I don't know how to be anything but what I became." "Then learn." Callum's voice was rough. "We both will. That's what second chances mean." Before Ernest could respond, the fortress shook. An explosion from the gates, screams, the clash of steel and the roar of primal fire. My mother had arrived. Callum. The throne room filled with warriors. Leo burst in, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. "They're here," he gasped. 300 primals. Kira's leading them. She's demanding Sarah be released and you be surrendered for execution. How long until they breach the inner walls? 20 minutes, maybe less. I looked at Sarah. She was exhausted, having burned through enormous power to restore Ernest, but her eyes were clear, determined. "We can run," I said. "Shadow walk to the Eastern Territories. Regroup." "No." She moved to the window, looking down at the attacking force. "No more running, no more half measures." She turned back to me. "You said if I crowned myself, it would send a message, that primals don't need permission to claim power. Yes, but then let's send that message." She smiled, fierce and beautiful. "Crown me now, here, in a throne room under siege. Show them exactly what happens when the old world tries to stop the new one." "That's insane." "That's perfect." She held out her hand. "Do you trust me?" I looked at this incredible woman, this memory keeper who'd chosen mercy over erasure, who'd burned herself to save a monster, who stood in a besieged fortress and demanded coronation. "With everything I am," I said, taking her hand, "then let's make history." Sira. They assembled in record time, every important figure who could reach the throne room in minutes. Leo and his guards, the fortress staff, a handful of visiting dignitaries who'd come for the formal ceremony and instead got revolution. And standing in the corner, still looking shell-shocked, Ernest, the entity that wasn't an entity anymore. I stood before Callum's throne, still in my coronation gown, still glowing faintly from the fire I'd burned. Outside, my mother's army battered at the walls. "This is irregular," someone protested from the crowd. "The ceremony was scheduled for noon. The proper protocols are irrelevant," Callum said, his voice carrying absolute authority. "We're under attack. If this fortress falls, the proper protocols won't matter. So we do this now." He looked at me. "Sarah Ashford. You stand before this assembly to claim power not through birthright or conquest, but through choice. Do you understand what you claim?" "I do." My voice rang clear. "I claim the right to lead, to protect, to choose mercy over vengeance and building over burning. And how will you prove yourself worthy?" This wasn't in the traditional script. This was Callum giving me an opening. I took it. "By stopping a war." I turned to face the assembled crowd. My mother leads an army of primals who want to burn the temples and tear down the hierarchy. She thinks the only way to fix this broken world is to destroy it completely. She's not wrong about the world being broken, someone muttered. No, she's not. I met their eyes. The hierarchy is oppressive. The temples did commit genocide. The system crushes anyone who doesn't fit its narrow definition of strong. I let fire dance across my hands. But burning it all down doesn't fix that. It just replaces one tyranny with another, replaces alpha dominance with primal dominance, and nothing actually changes. So what do you propose? Leo asked. A third option. I looked at Callum. Abolish the hierarchy entirely. No more alpha, beta, omega, no more power determined by birth. Just people, wolves, choosing how to live together. Shocked silence. Then someone laughed. That's impossible. The hierarchy is ordained by the moon goddess herself. You can't just abolish divine law. Can't I? I smiled. I'm a memory keeper. I can burn away the memory of that divine law. Make it so the hierarchy was never sacred. Just a structure wolves created and can therefore uncreate. That's blasphemy, a priest protested. That's revolution, I corrected, and it's the only way to stop my mother without becoming like her. Callum stepped down from his throne. If we do this, if we actually abolish the hierarchy, it will cause chaos. Pacts will fracture, alliances will collapse, the entire political structure will implode. Yes, I met his eyes. And from that chaos, we build something better. Something that doesn't require genocide or suppression or systematic oppression. You're asking me to destroy everything I've spent 800 years building. I'm asking you to help me build something worth keeping. He studied me for a long moment. Then incredibly, he knelt. I, Callum, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, recognize that the hierarchy was created by wolves and can be dismantled by wolves. I renounce my divine right to rule. I claim only the authority that those I protect freely give me. He looked up. And I recognize Sarah Ashford, Memory Keeper, as my equal in all things, my partner in rebuilding what we've broken. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then, one by one, the guards knelt, the staff, the visiting dignitaries. I still think this is insane, Leo said, kneeling. But I've followed you through 800 years of sane decisions that led to genocide. Maybe it's time to try insane. I looked at them all. These wolves who were choosing to bet everything on a better world. Then witness, I said formally. I, Sarah Ashford, claim no divine right, no birthright, only the authority freely given by those who choose to follow. I walked to where the crown sat on a velvet cushion, not Callum's crown, a different one, forged specifically for this ceremony. Silver and moonstone, beautiful and simple. I picked it up and placed it on my own head. I crown myself, I said clearly, not as a queen above others, but as a leader among equals. And my first act is to open these gates and talk to my mother, to offer her the same choice I'm offering you. Burn down the old world, or build a new one. The fortress shook again. Closer now. My mother's army was at the inner walls. Open the gates, I commanded. That's suicide, someone protested. That's faith. I looked at Callum. Ready? He stood, shadows already gathering around him. To build or burn? Both. Took his hand. We burn away what needs to go and build from what remains. Together, we walked to the gates. Ernest followed, silent but present. Leo and the guards flanked us, and when the massive doors opened, we faced an army. My mother stood at its head, soul fragment gleaming in her hand. 300 primals at her back, all burning with power and rage and justified fury. Sarah, she said, surprise flickering across her face. You escaped the scar. How? He helped me. I gestured to Callum. The man you want to kill. He dove into that darkness and pulled me out. Of course he did, to keep his weapon close. Kira raised soul fragment. But you're free now. Come with me. Help me finish what we started. No. Sarah, I'm not helping you burn the world, Mother. I stepped forward, alone, walking between the two armies. But I'm not helping him preserve the broken one either. I stopped in the middle. Neutral ground. I'm offering a third option. To both of you, I looked back at Callum. Destroy Soul Render. Break the bargain. End the cycle of erasure permanently. Shock flashed across his face. That will kill me. I know. Sarah, you can't ask him to... Leo started. I can, and I am. I looked at Callum. Because as long as Soul Render exists, the threat exists, the temptation, the fear, and we can't build a new world while clutching weapons that unmake people. Then I turned to my mother. And you destroy Soul Fragment. Stop the war. Join us in dismantling the hierarchy from within instead of burning it from without. Kira laughed. You're asking us both to disarm? To trust that the other won't strike? Yes. That's naive. That's hope. I let my fire build, not as a threat, but as a beacon. And hope is the only thing that's ever actually changed the world. Not fear, not rage. Hope that we can be better than we've been. Silence stretched. Then Callum spoke. If I destroy Soul Render, the god of Twilight will kill me. Slowly, painfully, as punishment for breaking our bargain. I know. And you'd ask me to do it anyway? I'd ask you to choose. The blade or the future. Safety or trust. The monster you were or the man you're becoming. He looked at me. At this woman who'd burned through his lies, his guilt, his carefully constructed defenses, who'd seen the worst of him and chosen to believe in the best. Ernest, Callum said quietly. The former entity stepped forward. You're a memory keeper. Can you burn away a divine bargain? Ernest's eyes widened. Theoretically, yes. If I burned the memory of the bargain from both you and the god, it would be as if it never existed. Would it kill me? I don't know. The god might not even notice the bargain was gone, or might notice and be furious, or... He stopped. There's no way to predict. Good enough. Callum pulled Soul Render from its sheath. The blade gleamed, beautiful and terrible. Callum, no, Leo started. Yes. He looked at the blade that had defined 8 centuries of his existence. I'm done letting fear make my choices. He raised Soul Render high and brought it down against his knee. The blade shattered. Not broke. Shattered. Exploded into 1,000 fragments of darkness that screamed as they dissolved into nothing. Callum fell to his knees, gasping. Violet light poured from his eyes, his mouth, every pore. The god of Twilight's power unraveling, the bargain breaking. I ran to him, shadows and fire mixing as I tried to hold him together. Ernest, I shouted, burn the bargain, now! Ernest's hands came down on Callum's head, and fire, not my fire, but a memory keeper's fire, blazed. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the violet light stopped pouring out. Callum's breathing steadied. The shadow settled. Did it work? He gasped. The god doesn't remember the bargain, Ernest said, swaying. Neither do you, technically. I had to burn that memory from both sides. But you're alive. The price is paid. Callum looked down, his empty hands, at the space where Soul Render had existed for 8 centuries. Then he looked at me and smiled. I'm free. I helped him stand and turned to face my mother. Kira stood frozen, soul fragment lowering slowly. You actually did it. You actually destroyed the blade. Your turn, I said. She looked at her army, at the 300 primals who'd followed her, trusted her, believed in her vision of scorched earth and purifying fire. If I do this, she said slowly, if I give up the war, what guarantee do I have that you'll actually dismantle the hierarchy? That this isn't just another pretty lie to keep us controlled? None. I met her eyes. You have my word. That's all. But it's the same word you gave me when you begged Callum to save me. The same word that kept you alive for 22 years. The same word that brought you here. My word was for you, for my daughter. And I'm asking you to trust me the way you trusted him. I held out my hand. Please, Mother. Choose hope over hate. Choose building over burning. Choose me. Kira stared at my outstretched hand. The entire assembled crowd, both armies, both sides of an impossible divide, held their breath. Finally, slowly, Kira drove Soul Fragment into the ground and left it there. "I choose you," she said, her voice breaking. "I choose my daughter, even if she's choosing a path I don't understand." She crossed the distance between us and pulled me into an embrace. "But if they betray you, if they hurt you, if this new world you're building crumbles, then I'll burn it down myself," I promised. "But let's try building first." 1 month later, the coronation, the real one, the formal one, happened on a clear spring day. Representatives from every pack in the territories attended, primals and hierarchy wolves mixing freely for the first time in 8 centuries, wary, uncertain, but present. I stood before them all in a simpler gown than the one I'd worn during the siege, silver silk, yes, but without the weight, without the burden. Callum was beside me, but not above me. We'd had the throne room redesigned, 2 chairs of equal height where one had stood before. "Sarah Ashford," the officiant said, not a priest, but a historian we'd all agreed was neutral. "You claim leadership through choice, not birthright. Do you swear to serve those who freely follow?" "I do." "Do you swear to dismantle systems of oppression, even when difficult?" "I do." "Do you swear to build a world where power is shared, not hoarded?" "I do." She turned to the crowd. "Does anyone challenge this claim?" Silence. Then from the back, my mother stood. "I do." Gasps. Callum's hand moved to where Soul Render used to hang. Kira walked forward slowly. "I challenge not the claim, but the scope. Sarah Ashford swears to dismantle oppression, but she should swear more." She stopped before me. "Swear that you'll remember, that you'll keep the memories of every primal who was erased, every wolf who was crushed by the hierarchy, every life that was deemed worthless." Her eyes shone with tears. "Swear that you'll carry their stories, not as weapons, but as lessons, so we never forget the cost of fear." Understanding dawned. "I swear it. I'll be the memory keeper, not just of individuals, but of history itself. I'll hold the truth of what we did to each other, and I'll make sure the new world remembers why we chose to change." Kira smiled. "Then you have my support, and my armies. We'll help you build instead of burn." She knelt. The 300 primals behind her knelt, and from the other side, the hierarchy wolves, former alphas and betas and omegas who were learning to be just wolves, knelt too. The officiant placed the crown on my head. "Then rise, Sarah Ashford, not as queen, not as ruler, but as leader among equals, as memory keeper for a world that's choosing to remember its mistakes and build something better." I stood. The crowd roared its approval, and I looked at Callum, and at my mother, at Ernest, who'd chosen to stay and help rebuild, at Leo, who'd followed madness into hope, at all these broken people choosing to believe in something better. "Speech!" someone called. "The new leader should speak." I hadn't prepared anything, hadn't expected this moment to actually arrive, so I spoke from the heart. 60 days ago, they threw me into a fire pit for being born wrong. My voice carried across the hall, tried to erase me because I didn't fit their definition of acceptable. But fire doesn't destroy what's primal. It transforms it, reveals it, forges it into something stronger. I let my fire dance across my hands, not a threat, but a promise. So yes, I burned. Yes, I survived. Yes, I came back stronger. But I didn't come back for revenge. I came back for revolution, for the radical idea that we don't have to keep destroying each other, that we can choose to build instead. I looked at my mother. "I know some of you wanted war, wanted to burn it all down and start over, and I understand that rage. I've felt it. But I'm asking you to try something harder. I'm asking you to forgive without forgetting, to dismantle without destroying, to rebuild without erasing. Because memory is power, and I'm choosing to use that power to remember what we were, so we can become what we should be." I raised my crowned head. "So let this coronation mark not an ending, but a beginning. The first day of a world where no one is thrown into fire for existing, where no one is erased for being different, where power is shared instead of hoarded. It won't be easy. It won't be perfect. We'll make mistakes, but we'll make them together, as equals, as partners, as people choosing hope over fear." And if you're willing to try, to build, to believe, then I'm willing to lead, not as someone above you, but as someone beside you. I held out my hands, one toward the primals, one toward the hierarchy wolves. So let's burn away the old world and build something worth remembering. The applause was deafening, and in the crowd I saw Judith, her tongue still gone, but her eyes shining with pride. Saw wolves from both sides tentatively talking to each other. Saw the first fragile bridges being built across an 800-year divide. Saw the future, uncertain but possible. Callum leaned close. You know this is going to be chaos, right? The hierarchy won't fall peacefully. There will be resistance, rebellion, probably civil war. I know. I took his hand. But at least it'll be our chaos, our choice, our chance to be better. Together? Together. We stood before our people, not subjects, not followers, but partners in revolution, and watched the first sunrise of a new world. One that had been forged in fire, one that refused to forget, one that chose every single day to hope. Epilogue. Years later they would tell the story differently. Some would say the cursed Omega who was thrown into the fire pit died that day, and a goddess emerged. Others would say the Alpha King renounced his throne and followed a primal into madness. Still others would claim it was all political theater, carefully orchestrated to seize power. But I know the truth. I was there. I remember. I'm the memory keeper after all. And this is what I remember. A girl who thought she was broken learned she was powerful. A king who thought he was irredeemable learned he could change. A mother who thought revenge was justice learned that hope was stronger. And together, we burned away the old world. Not with rage, not with erasure, not with the fire that destroys, but with the fire that transforms, the fire that forges, the fire that illuminates. And yes, sometimes I forget. The price of my power is still memory, still fragments of myself scattered like ash. But every morning Callum wakes me and tells me who I am. Every evening my mother reminds me who I was, and every day I choose again who I want to become. That's the secret they don't tell you about resurrection. It's not a one-time miracle. It's a choice you make every single day. To rise from the ashes, to remember what matters, to burn bright instead of burning out, and to believe, despite everything, that tomorrow can be better than yesterday. So yes, they threw the cursed Omega into the fire pit, and the Alpha King walked out carrying her. But that's not the end of the story. That's just where it begins.